the hall entirely decongested. We are requesting all men and women of the media to make their way to the media center. We have good enough and sufficient, adequate provision for all the assets that you would require, images, text, and all the assets relating to the 11th Bola Tinubu colloquium. We want you to please decongest the hall. Please, no standing on the aisle. We want a seamless event, and I'm respectfully requesting you to decongest the aisle. All media men should please make their way to the media center. Please, the choir. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed by providence that we're all gathered here to celebrate a man who we all revere. And to commence today's proceedings, we are going to revere God. And we are going to be taking our formal rites of prayer, and we are requesting for both a Muslim and a Christian prayer to be taken to commence proceedings. So I'll be asking distinguished Senator Yahya Abdullahi and Pastor Itwa Igodalo to please make their way to the podium for the prayer rite.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلوا على النبي الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهب لنا من أمرنا رشدا سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
A Christian prayer. Okay. So we will now ask, I think Pastor Ito Godalo is not around. Okay. So please, will Mr. Tola Ashekun make his way to say the opening prayers of Christian faith? Mr. Tola Ashekun.
Let us pray. In Jesus' name, Almighty and everlasting Father, we thank you for today. We pray that the Almighty God will take total control of this meeting today in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Thank you, Father.
My name is Ikem Isiakwena. I'll be moderating today's colloquium. Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by Your Excellency.
Hello and welcome. Good to know you're tuned into the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA, Africa's largest television network. My name is Kolo Muhammad, and I have the singular honor, as I'm privileged, to on behalf of the management and staff of the NTA, welcome you to the 11th colloquium in honor of Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, and this is to mark his 67th birthday celebration. Bola Tinubu, born on 27 March 1952, became a senator in 1993 and the executive governor of Lagos State from 1999 to 2007. He turned 67 years of age today, and this colloquium, like I said earlier, is in his honor. Thank you for joining the NTA at this time. You're welcome.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and not to forget our royal fathers, your royal majesties, you're all welcome to the 11th Bola Ahmed Tinubu colloquium. Every year, we gather together to discuss important national issues. These issues, These issues relate to both social, economic, and the political dynamics and the future of Nigeria. This year, our theme is titled Next Level, Work for People. And we have gathered together a number of speakers who will show that it is indeed possible to match our aspirations with action. But to give us a view of how the colloquium has metamorphosed and evolved into what it is today, we have put together a multimedia presentation on the history of the colloquium. Multimedia, please.
It is 10 a.m. on a wet Monday morning, sometime in the year 2001. The cabinet meeting of the Lagos State Executive considers many issues. The debate is extensive and heated at times, but always focused and productive. All the contributors look forward to the vibrant discourse that helped shape the fortunes of Lagos State and some other states. Years later, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu having served 2 terms as governor, often found himself and all the usual suspects and contributors still involved in these intense debates about a progressive Nigeria. So, one day, some of the contributors thought, why not go public with our conversations to mark Asiwaju's birthday? This could broaden the solution base to our common national issue. Consequently, the Bola Tinubu colloquium was born.
We are resolute in our commitment to uplift our people and to make Nigeria a better place. I think my friend Asiwaju would be happy with such a birthday gift. Happy birthday, Asiwaju. May God grant you more years of good health and service to Nigeria. Thank you very much.
And the preacher said, Amen. So our prayer, our answers, and our request is that the life of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be elongated and it will continue to provide leadership and guidance for our nation. So we have a formal welcome note that seeks to welcome everyone formally to the 11th Bola Tinubu Colloquium, and it will be delivered by none other than His Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, Akinwumi Ambode, our chief host.
Your Excellency, the President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by His Excellency, the Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and his amiable wife here present, the celebrant and national leader, All Progressives Congress, His Excellency, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his amiable wife, Distinguished Senator Oluremi Tinubu, Your Excellencies, the state governors here present, members of the National Assembly, former governors, honorable ministers, my lords, spiritual and temporal, Your Royal Majesties and Highnesses, governors-elect here present, distinguished invited guests, gentlemen of the press, good morning, everyone. It is my profound pleasure to welcome you all to this 11th Bola Ahmed Tinubu Colloquium. As I welcome you all to this event, I ask you to join me in wishing a very happy birthday to the man for whom we have all gathered today, a man of high political dexterity, the dogged national leader of our great party, the All Progressives Congress, and a man of undoubted courage and political acumen. This year's colloquium is coming at a time when Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has spearheaded our party to victory in the general elections at the Federal, National Assembly, Governorship, and State Assembly elections. This colloquium is coming at a time when the APC has spread its progressive tentacles even further in the country. And this colloquium is coming at a time when Nigerians are eagerly looking forward to the next level in progressive policies, economic growth, social welfare, and increased national security. The theme of this colloquium, Next Level, Work for People, is perfectly conceived as it fits the moment. We are all expectant, and we can feel the next level unfolding. Our country is on the threshold of greatness because for the first time since our independence, we will have successive administrations of a progressive and visionary government, a government of integrity, a government whose sole interest is the well-being of Nigeria and Nigerians. We are lucky to be here in these exciting times, in a time when our country will be led by selfless individuals who have the progress and prosperity of our people as their major objective. And we are here today because Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been a very key part of this story. We are here not only to celebrate him, but to celebrate the incoming dawn in Nigeria. We are here to celebrate the next level in Nigeria, where Nigerians will be served and given what is due to them. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, and all our distinguished guests, once again, I welcome you all, and I thank you for honoring our invitation. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to acknowledge Our Excellency, distinguished Senator Oluremi Tinubu, the wife of our celebrant, who had so much color to everything, planning for this colloquium and everything else that pertains to this event. So we have, from a thematic perspective, a multimedia presentation that gives you a preview to what's possible at the next level. The next level, as you know, suggests progress. It suggests moving up a notch higher, a step higher. So we've put together a presentation that takes bits and pieces of all the programs that the All Progressive Congress has put forward as their priority and plans for the next 4 years. Multimedia, please.
There's something for everybody at the next level. Our children, our youth, our old, our women, our men. The artisan, the entrepreneur, the producer, the trader all go higher in the next level. Next level is about jobs, millions of it, and power. Jobs in agriculture, technology, the creative sector, school feeding, and industrialization. Next level is about people, money, its growth, and funding for millions of entrepreneurs, artisans, traders, tailors, hairdressers, taxi drivers, and others. Next Level connects people, goods, and opportunities by rail from Lagos to Ibadan and Kano and back. To and fro from coast to coast, Lagos to Calabar. The trains will go from Port Harcourt through the southeast to every state capital therein, through the north central and Maiduguri. The trains in Eastern Line will stretch. Next level is power to the people in the markets. Clean, uninterrupted light powering shops, blenders and grinders, energizing the economy and also our education. Next level brings all the regulators, CAC, NAFDAC, SUN, ETC, under one roof in each senatorial district, simplifying government procedures for businesses and enabling industrial parks and production centers for businesses. Next level means every child counts and is trained and skilled for a digital and civic-oriented future under the banner of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, STEAM, into coding, animation, and robotics. All our teachers in primary and secondary schools retrained to train our children. 10,000 schools each year remodeled for the new level model of classrooms to impart our country's future in a knowledge economy. An inclusive future where all can access healthcare. Next level is where our women and youth are given the responsibility to shape and mold the future and govern. Next level is internet for all and techies. Today points to the future and the next level. We are all going higher. Next level.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our first segment will look at industrialization as a focus area. Now, we are looking at industrialization because it's pivotal to Nigerians' long-term development, and broadening and deepening the manufacturing sector is key to enhancing any sort of growth that we aspire to. So we are looking backwards to look forward. And in the past 4 years, the government has conceived the idea of special economic zones. We have also a speaker who has worked extensively in this area, and he is going to shed some light on what the 4 years has put forward, and also how it connects to the next level priority for the 4 years that are ahead of us. But before we go into that, we have an explainer video that shows you what the special economic zones are about. So please, can we go to multimedia now? SEZ in 60 seconds.
SEZs in 60 seconds. Developing special economic zones, SEZs, is a key aspect of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration strategy to diversify the economy and achieve growth. Recently, the federal government set up NSE-ZCO Limited as a vehicle for participating in public-private partnerships in
local and foreign private investors to develop new special economic zones
all over the country. The federal government has signed investment agreements with Afrexim Bank, Bank of Industry, and the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. The other investment partners are African Development,
Africa Finance Corporation, AFC. The SEZs offer
world-class infrastructure and facilities at competitive costs. The projects in the pilot phase include Eimba Economic City, Funtua Cotton Cluster, and Lekki Model Industrial Park. On the project Mine, or Made in Nigeria for Export, Nigeria is being positioned as the preeminent manufacturing hub in sub-Saharan Africa. As a leading global and regional export market, Nigeria will see manufacturing's share of GDP rise to 20%, generating $30 billion in annual export earnings and creating 1.5 million new jobs, all by 2025.
So our first speaker is a leading and pioneering light in private equity in Nigeria and indeed Africa. Although qualified as a medical doctor, He's delved into the world of finance, where he's excelled extremely well. He's a co-founder of the African Capital Alliance, one of Nigeria's leading private equity firm. Join me, make welcome the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Okechukwu Enelama.
His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by His Excellency Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is here with his amiable wife, Mrs. Dolapo Osinbajo. Our celebrant, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, here with his amiable wife, Senator Oluremi Tinubu. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you will permit me not to recognize everybody that is here, given that we want to get on with the business of the day. We thought that to kick off this presentation or to kick off the proceedings today, it would be nice to actually share something we have done, something that has been conceived, and it's now in implementation. You will agree with me that given that the colloquium has been going on and that this is the 11th edition, it's also good to reflect on what we have done that is the basis for the next level we're talking about. And we believe that what we're about to share with you will, at full implementation, literally transform Nigeria. The good news is that the foundations have been laid, and as the explainer video showed, all the critical elements required to make this a success are already in place. So in my view, what we are looking at now is a process of time, just sticking to the knitting, sticking to the policy, sticking to the implementation, and I am 100% certain the results will follow. So permit me to then take you through a brief presentation on what we have done, starting from the vision or that it came from, and then going all the way to. Now, we're all familiar with the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which is the anchor economic program of this government. That program is very people-centric, and we think that the three objectives are very fundamental and make all the sense. We are focused on growth, investing in our people, and building a competitive economy. And that's really the thrust of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. If you then focus on the theme of industrialization, which is one of the major priorities of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, we believe that industrialization, properly implemented, will achieve significant job creation and create also the relevant social investments by freeing up capital that can be invested in social sectors like healthcare and education, and will be truly transformative because it will move us from a resource and agrarian economy to manufacturing and services. Let me say that, for every manufacturing job that is created, experts tell us you create 5 to 20 indirect jobs. So there is a multiplier effect to the strategy we're about to share with you, that in creating 1.5 million jobs, we think it will lead to anywhere from 7.5 million to perhaps even 30 million jobs that can be created. The other point to make is that the vision we are sharing with you and the plan is something that has been done by other countries. It is our view that if we follow the path that others have followed successfully, we'll get the same result. I remember His Excellency, who, as you know, is a minister of the world, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. He used to tell us that the proverb, experience is the best teacher, actually says experience is the best teacher for a fool. In other words, if you want to experience it yourself before you do it, then you're not being wise in learning from those who have gone before you. Countries like China, South Korea, Malaysia, and even in Africa, countries like Ethiopia and Morocco have adopted and implemented the strategies we're talking about to great effect. And it is our view that as we implement it, we will develop local industry, technology capabilities, and competitiveness. And we will also create multiple jobs, like I alluded to earlier, and of course, create world-class infrastructure. What then is Project Mine all about? Project Made in Nigeria for Export. Let me make the point up front that when we say Project Made in Nigeria for Export, it will also serve our needs locally. But we believe that if you are manufacturing for export, you typically will also be competitive locally, because it means that it's like somebody who's going to compete in the Olympics. If you were to play in a local tournament, he obviously will win if he's a winner in the international tournament. What are the objectives of Project Made in Nigeria for Export? Number one is to boost the share of manufacturing to our gross domestic product to 20%. If you look at most of the countries that have achieved full employment or meaningful employment, manufacturing is a major part of the GDP. In Nigeria, it's only 10%. We believe we must push for manufacturing to move up to closer to 20%. We believe we can create, like we said, at least 1.5 million jobs over the next 5 to 10 years as Project Mine is fully implemented. And these are the direct jobs. And remember, for each direct job, you create 5 to 20 indirect jobs, which means that like you could literally create an additional 7.5 to 30 million extra jobs based on these direct jobs. And we believe it will generate up to $30 billion US in export earnings, which would then become meaningful compared to what we're earning in oil. And of course, this will also improve our comparative advantage, because a lot of our products today are not being fully utilized to achieve that advantage. And most importantly, this can become, we can adopt local models for achieving global best standards. Let me deal with the main activity areas of Project Mine. Project Mine will deliver results in at least 4 major areas for us. First, it will create a supportive, enabling environment for special economic zones. Let me make the point that like the projects that the government is going to work on with its partners are meant to be demonstration projects or model projects, meaning that like we expect many other projects to take off and are taken off by the private sector. So this is why we think that like creating the enabling environment for all is the singular most important objective we actually have. Now, we intend to fast track the development of a couple of pilot model special economic zones, and we'll show you where those zones are to be located. We also intend to demonstrate effectiveness in public-private partnerships. Already, like I said, these things have been done, and some of the points were made in the explainer video. And then finally, we plan to build new world-class zones that will be greenfield once the pilots are successful. The other thing to note about Project Made in Nigeria for export is that it's going to be spread nationwide. In other words, it's going to be geographically representative. All parts of the country will be fully represented, and we'll share examples with you. Like we said, we're going to include new projects, in other words, greenfield projects, brownfield projects, meaning that projects that exist today that want to move to the next level. The 2 examples being the industrial parks in Calabar and in Kanu that we want to take to the next level. And then, of course, we're doing studies for the next generation of projects already. Let me now talk a bit about what we have already achieved with Project Mine to demonstrate that it has moved from theory to practice or to implementation. First, we have established a platform company that would house these initiatives that we're talking about, called the Nigeria Special Economic Zones Investment Company, or Nigeria SESCO for short. Now, this Nigeria SESCO is a public-private partnership that will operate to world-class standards, and we are committed to making sure that it will meet those standards. And it's going to be jointly owned by the government, federal government, through Ministry of Finance Incorporated, MOFI, and our partners, African Exim Bank, Bank of Industry, Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, African Finance Corporation, and the African Development Bank. All these partners have either signed up or are completing their processes. Some of you may remember that on February 8th, I remember it was a Friday, the president himself in the presidential chambers, and in the council chambers, launched this project where this signing ceremony took place, and it was well covered by the media and well reported by the media. Therefore, we're talking about something that has actually already happened rather than something that would happen. And of course, Special Economic Zone will leverage our own funding to attract funding from others. So the whole idea is to have a multiplier effect. And we believe that we're well on our way to doing that. Who are some of the partners that are helping to realize this vision of the Special Economic Zones and NCESCO in particular? This slide shows you some of the partners. You will notice that all the partners are world-class partners. Starting from some of the anchor tenants. When the president went to China, the chairman of Rui Group met with him during the last trip to China that the president went and committed to investing $2 billion in the textile sector, in the cotton, textile, and garment sector of Nigeria. And that those discussions are now at a point of implementation. We also have companies that are already operating in Nigeria, like Flour Mills of Nigeria, that will be an anchor tenant in some of the centers in terms of agribusiness. Now, in terms of the development advisors and consultants, we have Sobona Jorong, which is a world-leading company out of Singapore. We have DA, which came out originally from the Middle East, but is now global. And of course, we have McKinsey & Company, which is, as you know, is a world-class consulting company. And then the legal advisors are the leading local law firm, Aluko and Oyebode. All these companies are fully engaged and have implemented what is required of them at one level or the other. Let me now share some of the examples that we have already worked on, just to, as I begin to conclude the presentation. First is Enyimba City, which is a city that is an industrial city in the southeastern part of the country. It occupies over 9,500 hectares of land. And just put it in perspective, 9,500 hectares of land will be the equivalent of 6 average-sized cities. Now, the master planning, feasibility studies, and detailed design for the phase 1 of the project is already concluded. The partners that will build it are already in place, people like Group 5 of South Africa, Bilal of the United Emirates, and China Harbour from China, and so on. And also, he has a dedicated IPP, independent power plant, that will serve it uninterrupted power. And the government has already entered into a partnership with Enyimba City, where we are the co-investors with the sponsors and the state government of Abia, the Abia state government, the federal government, and then, of course, all these are partners are partnering with us, from Afrexim to African Finance Corporation to Bank of Industry to the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, and so on and so forth. So this Enyimba City believes that the phase 1 alone will create at least 625,000 jobs, and the implementation is already well underway. The next one to share with you is Lekki Model Industrial Park. And I want to specially thank the governor of Lagos State, Governor Ambode, because he actually fast-tracked the availability of this land, 1,000 hectares of land in the Lekki Free Zone, to make it available. Once he had the story, he said that Lekki would like to participate in it. Now, this land is meant to be for, world-class export-oriented manufacturing, from things like cotton to agro-processing to other areas. And we're looking at the northeast corridor of the Lekki Free Zone. And this site already has undergone full feasibility studies, and we're now in negotiations with the partners who will work with us to take this over. The third example I want to share with you is the Funtua Cotton Cluster, Katsina. Now, Funtua has the largest aggregation of cotton ginneries in Nigeria, and is the traditional home of cotton ginning. The cluster will aggregate cotton from over 800,000 farmers in northern Nigeria and become the largest integrated in. It will reestablish the cotton value chain from seed cotton to finished fabric and provide oriented garment manufacturing. And you will agree with me that this is one thing we need to bring back. The whole cotton, textile, and garment sector, which used to be a pride of Nigeria. And one of the lessons we learned from the Rui Group when we met with them in China, their cotton is because some of the value chain pieces were missing. And they said it's like trying to build something where there is a river and you don't have a bridge. And they are committed to working with us to fill all the gaps by making the heavy investment I talked about earlier of $2 billion. So in conclusion, You can see from this is just one example of the reforms that this government has undertaken. You will agree with me that we're building for the next level, a Nigeria of high quality manufacturing and service jobs, growth and opportunity, and shared prosperity, and a better life for millions of our people. The good news about this is that this is not theory. We're not talking about feasibility studies or strategies, but something that the government has actually implemented. I have several of my colleagues from the Cabinet, the Federal Executive Council, who were supportive and who have helped to not only pass this particular program to be implemented and who have seen the implementation. So again, I want to thank you for listening, and I want to promise you that if we pull together, that we'll see the Nigeria of our dreams. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Slightly taller than I am, so we have to bring it down to my level. Thank you, Dr. Okechukwu Enelama. Thank you for that presentation on Nigeria's industrialization policy. Now, the next level is not just a slogan. It's an expression of intent, philosophy, and policy. Next level is focused on people.
The NTA.
And while having
that was Okechukwu Onelema, Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investments. He said an economic vision for Nigeria is in the offing for the next level, and it is supported by the rest of the world. He mentioned zones, economic zones that are being prepared to take Nigeria's economy to the next level. Now, colloquium. If a colloquium is held in your honor, you must have been responsible for so many good things, including words and marble. For Bola Tinubu says, and I quote, "Education without patriotism degenerates into selfish pursuit, and patriotism without education and wisdom writes the tale of fatal mistakes committed with the best of intentions." I just quoted one of the words of marble by Ahmed Bola Tinubu, today's celebrant. This colloquium has been organized, arranged, and presented to you to mark his 67th birthday ceremony. Bola Tinubu is currently a national leader of the All Progressives Congress, the APC. Just so we know, APC is currently the political ruling party of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you for staying tuned. We're still on to the NTA.
On the special production and processing facilities, sharing ideas on similar African programs. Please, Professor Oyelaran Oyenika.
Thank you. Excellencies, President Muhammadu Buhari, represented by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, our celebrant for today, Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu. I congratulate you on your birthday, and I wish you many more years on this earth in the service of our country. I'm asked to speak about next level industrialization. I speak to this in a few minutes because it's a conversation we should have for hours and hours. But I'm just going to outline what this is about, agro-industrialization, and exactly what challenges it's expected to meet, and what examples we have in a few African countries that I'm assigned to drive for now. Let me see. Sorry. Okay. Now, there are critical challenges for all generations, for all nations throughout history. Three basic challenges. One is the idea of empowering the people of every nation. How do you raise living standards of our people? How do you improve their quality of life? Whenever you have a society where people are jobless, where people are poor, you have problems. So the theme for this conference, for me, is apt. The first condition to empower people economically to change their status to the new level, to raise their income, is to provide them with jobs, decent jobs that will eradicate poverty and hunger in the land. As we know, unemployment lowers growth, it lowers productivity, and often it leads to cycles of economic inefficiency. So we need to aim for full employment in our society. The third goal, in addition to income and employment, is equity. For us to ensure equity in society, we need to change the dynamics between rural and urban areas. We need to change the dynamics within urban areas itself. At the African Development Bank, the big issue that we have been talking about is using agro-industrial processing zones as a solution to generate high-level jobs. The previous speaker has spoken a lot about economic zones, so I don't have to speak about it. I'll just focus on what agro-industrialization is about. Right now, globally, this is an $8 trillion business, employing 40 million people all over the world. As you know, agro-industrialization is actually a subset of manufacturing. So the manufacturing sector he talked about, this agro-industrialization is a subset of it. It also includes textiles and leather and so forth. Now, what we see is that the countries that have made money over the years, all the countries that have become great, have also never left agriculture. The same countries that manufacture aircrafts, they manufacture spacecrafts, they manufacture cars and so forth, have also been the same countries that have the most presence in agribusiness. If you see the graph on top here, the United States is leading in agribusiness. Agriculture, as we know it in the West, is more of agribusiness. It contributes about $1 trillion to US GDP every year. Same with China, same with Netherlands. So basically what these countries have done is move away from subsistence agriculture and actually industrialize agriculture. In Africa, the research we have both at the African Development Bank and the World Bank, is that by 2030, agribusiness will become $1 trillion economy, $1 trillion market. And Nigeria should get into this space. Now, what is the strategy? How does Nigeria get into it? What we are proposing is to set out agro-industrial zones all over the country. My colleague, the minister, had talked about the 3 zones, but the agro-industrial zones, as we know, it spans all areas of our country, all the corridors of our country. The vehicle that we are proposing is well known. We are using it in Ethiopia. We are setting it up in South Africa. As a matter of fact, next month we are having a whole-day retreat with President Kenyatta in Nairobi for the setting up of their 6 agro-industrial zones. South Africa wants to set up about 40 of them. We are prioritizing 9. And I know Nigeria has also sort of identified a number of corridors across the countries. So these particular agro-industrial zones, the objectives are well stated here: to expand food production, to add value to our raw materials, to promote local and regional investment, to bring infrastructure and crowd in anchor investors into this particular geographic space. Now, the function of these particular zones are set out as above. Basically, you are going to have, this way. Basically, you are going to have all the things you need for high-value production: cold storage units, quarantine facilities, quality control laboratories, R&D, quality certificate, raw material storage, control and modified atmosphere, like you have in many of the emerging economies. Recently, we were in South Korea, and I was really astounded to note that South Korea, advanced as it is, has over 400 agro-industrial processing zones. In 2017 alone, South Korea exported goods from those zones worth $11.5 billion. Not from cars, not from computers, not from semiconductors, from agro-processing zones. So this is a space where Nigeria has competitive advantage. We are supporting many countries, and we are working with the government of Nigeria also. Identified all of these zones in our country, from Sokoto to Zamfara to Katsina to Bauchi. There is no corridor in Nigeria that doesn't have something that we can process. I don't want to give you figures now. I'm hoping that we're going to have more detailed discussion with government to sit down with them and work out, in addition to what was spoken of earlier, in all corridors of our countries, whether in the south, east, north, central, all of them, based on this particular criteria. We identify them based on land production capacity, the estimation of their net marketable surplus, agro-commodities processing, and also inclusivity and sustainability to ensure that we generate equity. Now, one of the notable things about the zones that we are establishing in these countries is also the establishment of what we call skills enhancement zones. For example, in Ethiopia, the number of skills that had been developed over the last 3 years that this program started was over 800,000. We expect that by 2023, there will be direct jobs over 200,000 and indirect jobs of over 300,000, based on the initial investment of about $85.7 million. Through the partnership with the government of Ethiopia and Africa Development Bank, we're able to also crowd in other investors from Korea, the European Union, and so forth. And we are hoping the same thing will happen in Nigeria. Nigeria is a large market. Nigeria is a very important country, and we should not be left behind going forward. Now, what is the theory of change for the next level? In summary, there are, briefly, number one is production expansion and production enhancement. In other words, we need to plant more, we need to add more acreage to the land that we are cultivating. Nigeria has 90% of all its arable land, compared with Chad, for example. Only 3% of the land in Chad is arable. So we are blessed. We have everything we need to go to this next level. The next thing that the zones do is to create proximity. When there is proximity, you reduce transaction cost. You bring small farmers together with large farmers. You bring processors together with aggregators. And you bring them into this particular geographic space in a way that you are able to generate price competitiveness. We are going to target a situation where losses of goods through lack of transportation and all that will be reduced to the minimum. And of course, this leads to progress and to prosperity. Now, one of the most important issues for all of the countries where we are working is the nature of the governance system. There's been a vehicle that had been set up. It's very similar to what has been set up in Ethiopia. But what we know is that this is a multi-sectoral, inter-ministerial type thing. It's not just agriculture. It's not just industry. It spans all of those two, including, of course, the Treasury. So we are going to be proposing certain governance structures for the government, like we did for Ethiopia and also for Kenya. I hope that we are able to talk about this in more detail. My last word here is that all countries that became prosperous, they started with agriculture, but they got wealthy, not by staying on subsistence agriculture, but they move on to agro-industrialization. I believe Nigeria will get there, I believe we can do it. I can see a future for our country. The $1 trillion business that we are targeting for that is being manifested up to 2030 in Africa. If Nigeria can just get 20% of that, we'll be on our way to eradicating poverty and hunger from our land. I want to thank you very much. God bless you all, and God bless Nigeria.
Now it rises.
There you have it. There you have it. Next Level seeks to find out how to sustainably empower people, raise living standards, and erase joblessness. And this is cutting across Africa. And what is expected in the long run is regional integration. And that brings us to another of the celebrants' wise words, or words of Mabel, if you like. Change is not about comfort of today, but the success of tomorrow. This is one of the quotes by the celebrant of this day, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, who turned 67 today and has been celebrated nationally. Ahmed Bola Tinubu was a senator in 1993, became the governor of Lagos State in 1999. He held sway as governor from 1999 to 2007. Today, he is a national leader of the All Progressives Congress. Let me remind us once again that the APC, that is All Progressives Congress, happens to be the political ruling party of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you for staying tuned. The colloquium continues, and NTA is still here just for you.
We will now make welcome Mr. U.G. Muhammad, but even as he comes to the podium, the multimedia presentation, Next Level Power.
Decades of bad policy making and underinvestment in the power sector led to epileptic power supply. That is changing. We are providing off-grid clean and uninterrupted power to light up our markets and schools under the Energizing Economies and Energizing Education schemes. Just ask shop owners in Surah, Sabungari, Ariaria, and other markets. There has also been a 50% expansion in grid capacity from 5,000 megawatts to 7,125 megawatts. At the next level, we will have a zero-tolerance policy business clusters with uninterrupted and clean power under the Energizing Economies initiative, just as we reach 9 universities. We will enable off-grid standalone solar solutions with our $550 million rural electrification program, supported by the World Bank and African Development Bank, that creates a pipeline of private local investments and financial incentive. Home by home, market by market, workplace by workplace, we are all getting powered up and moving higher.
Your Excellency, the President Muhammad Buhari, ably represented by the Vice President and his wife, the celebrant Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the Jagaban Bargu, and our mentor, because we also benefited immensely from his magnanimity in mentoring people, and I want to wish him happy birthday today. Your Excellency, I'm going to talk about the effort that we have done in terms of pushing the national grid and the initiative we have done under this government. The first thing I want to inform you is that the privatization we implemented in Nigeria, which ended, I think, in 2013, was a very ambitious program that we did, which has no model equal to it all over the world. There is no model like that. If you ask some people, they will tell you it's an Indian model. The Indian model that they are claiming was a staggered privatization. They privatized one state, which is the state of Orissa. It is the experience that was learned on the state of Orissa that they used to privatize Delhi At that time, only 2 experiences. So there's a staggered privatization. But what we did was to sell everything and put a contingent liability of $5.4 billion on the country. At the same time, if you look at even the ATC&C that we are using, that ATC&C is what we used when we did RCM. I was the secretary of the RCM, which was the first private sector initiative in Nigeria. That ATC&C, for RCM, it will work because RCM is just a revenue collector. They are consultants. But when you say you privatize, ATC&C is supposed to be part of commercial, so it's not right. But I want to salute this government by staying faith with the privatization because we implemented the right thing wrongly. Therefore, we should work to make it work. I think that is the best thing that we have done. Your Excellency, I wanted to move to the next slide. Your Excellency, when this government took over power in 2000, capacity of the grid was only 4,000 megawatts. Was only 4,000 megawatts. The capacity of distribution was only about 3,500. And the capacity of transmission was about 4,000. As at December last year, the capacity of the grid has been expanded to 8,100. The capacity of generation was 7,500. And if you look at the last combined peak, which took place in February this year, the capacity of the distribution has also expanded to 5,375, which means we have moved. If for 16 years we were at that level, and in less than 4 years we have moved to this level, you know that we have moved. But we also need to move higher than this. And that is why in transmission, when I was appointed as MD of transmission, me and my colleagues came up with a strategy, which we call Transmission Rehabilitation and Expansion Strategy. And that strategy is based on a least cost expansion plan, which was a study which was done by Fitchner. That study looked at our expansion for the next 20 years. So we established the Transmission Rehabilitation Strategy, which is just a 4-year out of the 20-year, the expansion plan. And that strategy is supposed to, the objective is to expand the grid and rehabilitate the grid and take the grid to a capacity of at least 20,000 megawatts by 2021. Your Excellency, I want to tell you that the implementation of that strategy is on track. As at today, is on track. But what is the strategy about? Is to modernize the grid and make it a modern grid. Yes, we are working on all other options, just like other countries, because if you look at India, India used to have so many mini grids, but for economy of scale, as they expand, all the grid, they brought them together. So we should continue to use off-grid, other grid, but we should also fix the grid so that we have economy of scale. Now, the fourth thing we need to make to modernize the grid are these. One, we need to have what they call frequency under control. For information, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we achieved frequency control of 49.8 and 50.2 Hz for 65% of the time, from December 23rd to date, which means our stability of our grid in terms of frequency is the same as Ghana and is better than any other country in West Africa. We have not stopped at that. We have put those generators that are not providing free governor to provide it. And we believe by June this year, we should be able to have a frequency control that is better than any country in West Africa. Now, the next thing we need to have is what they call spinning reserve. For information, spinning reserve, if you check our daily broadcast, you will see it's either 0 or 40. With a generation of around 5,000, the spinning reserve is supposed to be 10%. I was also happy to tell you that we did a competitive procurement of spinning reserve, and we have procured spinning reserve, which were afforded to NAC for approval. This is the first time in the history of Nigeria that we did that. The next thing we need to have is that we need to have a functional SCADA. What is a SCADA? SCADA is a register of events. It means that everybody that's on the grid is supposed to comply according to the grid code. Now, when they fail to comply, they're supposed to be punished according to the grid code. But you have to have a register of events that will show that this person has committed this offense. For information, Nigeria attempted to have a functional SCADA 3 times, and 3 times were not entirely successful. I'm happy to tell you that all the things that we are supposed to put in place to make sure that we have a functional SCADA in place, including the fact that we organized international conference where we brought all the original equipment manufacturers across the world, and they came, and we have established a strategy to have a functional SCADA. You will watch and see in the next 1 week, you will see an advert for the procurement of the critical communication backbone, where we are going to link Ikeja West with Egbin. We are going to link Benin with Ajakuta. We also link Jos and Gombe, and also Aja and Alagbon. These are critical area communication that we need as a basis for us to have the SCADA. You will have that one before we launch the procurement of SCADA. Now, the next thing we need to have is the critical investment and substations. And we are tackling that in 3 forms, in 4 forms. 1, we are treating underperforming contractors. For information, Your Excellency, let me put you on record, and I want anybody to challenge me. Before now, contracts in this sector are done to enrich people. Contracts are not awarded for them to be completed. And that is why you see contracts that are supposed to be completed in 24 months. They take 16 years, 12 years. Every contract has a recourse. And what are those recourse? You have performance bond to call. You have advance payment to call. Advance payment bond to call. Those bonds are not called. So we have to have a strategy of dealing with those contractors. Now, some of them are they are using that like a farm. Every year there's variation, and they continue to collect money. Now, what we do, we have 2 strategies for those. Some of them, they are ready to work with us to ensure that we complete the project. We work with them, complete the project, and we stop variation, and we provide service to the people. That is how we completed Kukwaba here in Abuja. Some of them, they are not willing to allow us to enter. We forcefully enter and we complete the job. That is how we complete Damatru. That is how we complete Yawuri. That is how we complete Wudil. And that is how we are completing 9th Mile in Enugu. Now, the other thing we are using to complete the grid is that we are removing equipment from port. For information, before now we have 800 containers that were stranded in the port when we came in newly. 800 containers. So it took me 6 months. I couldn't remove a single container. But eventually, I'm happy to tell you that as last week, we have recovered 730 out of the 800 containers. Now, some of those containers have been there for the past 15 years. The DG of Custom, who has been helping me, is also here. He can confirm. Some of them have been auctioned. The last auctioned one was one he approved. He reversed the option and gave it to us just last week, 51 containers, which means when we recover that one, it will become 781 containers we have removed. So what we did, because TCN has no serious revenue, we get less than 40% of our revenue from the market. So what we did is to educate our staff on how they can use their initiative to install transformers and equipment. So we use in-house capacity and install those equipment we recover from the port. And under that arrangement, I'm happy to tell you that we have installed more transformers and equipment in the last 2 years, more than what was done in previous 15 years. Now, we have also used our staff to build substations. I'm happy to tell you that the first offshore substation that was built in Nigeria was built by our staff in Lagos, which in a place called Elashe. We commissioned it in February this year. This was entirely built by TCN staff. And for information, when I came newly and said, let's build that substation, the budget that was given to me for a contract was supposed to be 1.2 billion. This, our staff, completed that project at the rate of 150 million, completed everything. And we promoted him and he became the general manager of Lagos immediately. Now, the other way we are using to expand the grid is what I said, use of the donors. We have raised $1.6 billion investment in TCN. For information, all the years that Manitoba was managing TCN, there was no single audit of TCN. There was no single 1 cent was not raised by Manitoba Hydro in investment in TCN. But we have raised $1.6 billion. And all those areas that the Minister of Industry mentioned, that we are going to have industrial park, we are also expanding the capacity of the grid to ensure that those industrial parks are served. We just commissioned one by 300 MVA last month in Aba. That is one of the areas that the Minister of Industry mentioned. We are completing the line between Omotosho to Epe to Lekki Free Trade Zone. Then we connect it to Aja. We are putting a 330 kV substation at EPZ. That is the second area where the minister mentioned. We have also upgraded the capacity of Funtua, and we are also reconducting the line from Kaduna to Zaria, Zaria to Funtua, and Funtua to Gusau. That is also taking care of that area. I mentioned those areas, it's not only because that is the area we are looking at only, but just to tell you that we are using synergy to ensure that whatever we need in our industry, we connect them together and make it work. Now, for information, time is not on my side, but let me tell you, everything we are doing to fix the grid, because on the grid now, I can tell you we have not solved all the problem, but I can tell you any problem we have, I can tell you the time we are going to solve it. But everything we are doing on the grid, we are just serving just 18 customers. Only 18 customers are connected to the grid directly. The remaining people are connected through the distribution companies. Unfortunately, the expansion that we are having on the side of the grid and the expansion we are having on the side of the generation, because for information, Your Excellency, we are stopping people from connecting to the grid now. There are several generators that are gone very far, they want to be connected to the grid, but we are stopping them. Why are we stopping them? When we expand the grid and we have generators that we cannot distribute, we are putting contingent liability on the country. Therefore, until we do something to expand the distribution side, if we continue to expand the grid, we are going to have capacities that we are paying that we cannot offtake. Now, what is needed is that we need to expand the distribution. And we have simulated the requirement of the distribution. And we have arrived at $4.3 billion investment is needed in distribution. And sir, if we don't expand the distribution, even the expansion of the capacity of the transmission is not sustainable. Why? Even at the current existing capacity that we have 737 interfaces between us and the distribution. You know, electricity is a function of what you call protection. That is why in your house, you have ELCB, you have cut-outs. If there's a problem in your house, that problem, if it's not isolated, it will go from your house and go and burn the distribution substation. If that distribution substation is not fully protected, it will go and burn the injection substation. And that's how it will even go to transmission and burn the substation. This has happened sometime in Funtua. Now, what I'm trying to say is that these 731 interfaces with the distribution, only 421 are fully protected. The remaining 316 are not protected, meaning we are serving customers directly from transmission. So that means if there's a fault on people's house, it will directly hit transmission transformer. In that respect, sir, I want to tell you that in the last 1 year, we have lost 5 transmission power transformers across the country. And all those 5 are those that are serving the customer directly without protection on the side of Discos. And those transformers, we have 2 in Benin, 1 in Onitsha, 2 in Abuja here. Now, if we don't have investment in distribution so that they can have protection on their side to take care of all these inadequacies, it means that even the expansion we are doing in the transmission is a waste of time. Because as we are expanding and we are losing the transformer, we are just doing a zero-sum game. Now, what should we do? I think the next level, what should we do? So what we should do is that we should continue to implement the transmission rehabilitation and expansion program, where we are working with all the governors across the region to support us in getting the right of way. And the federal government is faithfully supporting us through the support we have received from the international donors. And for information, we are not putting liability on Nigeria. All the money that TCN is going, we have simulated, we can pay this money without recourse to the national treasury. We can pay it. We can pay it. So, but we have to implement it successfully. Now, the next thing we need to do is that we need to capitalize the distribution companies. Now, when we did the privatization, we did it as if government is going to be silent, meaning government is going to be passive. But so we have made a mistake. If we have made a mistake, we have to recognize the mistake. Therefore, if we are going to capitalize the distribution companies, government should bring it their 40% of that money, and the owners of distribution companies should bring the 60%. And we should come up with the tariff that will support that capitalization. And I want to tell you, if we do that, the tariff will not be expensive. That is a fact. It will not be expensive because the tariff will be based on money that's existing, which has monetary period, and which will reduce the losses. Because tariff is high, because there's high losses. If you have money to reduce the losses, the tariff will not be high. Now, the next thing we need to have is that we need to strengthen our regulatory regime to allow the fact that the tariff should move the way they are supposed to be, so that the market will become a sustainable market, so that we can have electricity market just like we have the telecom market. The staying and supporting the industry without removing this root cause of the lack of sustainability in the industry is not good for Nigeria. I think, let me stop here. Let me thank His Excellency, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We'll continue to pray for you to continue to live well, so that you can continue to advise somebody like us, so that we can do the right thing for Nigeria. Thank you very much, sir.
You might also ask, what needs to be done radically different for agriculture to become meaningful in Nigeria? You might have heard how important agriculture is for diversifying our economy from dependence on oil and also assuring food security. Agriculture is important for Nigeria as it represents a huge chunk of our labor force as well as 39% of our gross national product as of 2017. But agriculture today tells more of a potential story than a developmental narrative. Characterized by small-scale farmers, Nigeria's arable land covering 84 million hectares with suitable water availability could be put to much better and productive use. The lack of mechanization in agriculture practices and wide-scale value addition to primary produce are the root causes of penury and inadequate productivity in the sector. This is why President Muhammadu Buhari's administration is partnering with the government of Brazil to implement the Green Imperative. The Green Imperative is an initiative of the federal government of Nigeria to improve agricultural practices and maximize Nigeria's agricultural resources. The big idea is to move from the prevailing basic form of agriculture to a more mechanized system. The goal is to achieve self-sufficiency in domestic production as well as creating an export market for qualitative agro-based products. Driven by the private sector, the entire value chain will be developed from production through industrial processing to logistics, handling and marketing, and will involve full technology transfer. The Nigerian government, in partnership with the government of Brazil, will facilitate the financing of the provision of machinery, equipment, input, and services. This initiative is being executed in collaboration with the Central Bank of Nigeria, international financial institutions, and other partners that will include Nigerian financial institutions. At the top of the mechanization chain are 6 assembly plants to be activated and spread across the 6 geopolitical zones. The assembly plants will undertake the assembly of tractors and processing equipment as well as light manufacturing of parts, which will be sent out to the service centers closer to the farmers across the length and breadth of Nigeria. There will be a total of 780 service centers spread across all the local government areas in all the states, and the Federal Capital Territory. Primarily, the service centers will offer farmers services consisting of machinery and equipment services, tractors, for example, quality inputs, fertilizers and pesticides, technical assistance, and training for smallholder farmers. 109 of these service centers will be located in the 109 senatorial districts in Nigeria and classified as Process Service Center. Process Service Centers will, in addition to the already mentioned services, have processes which serve as throughput, with which value can be added to agricultural produce brought in by local farmers. Process Service Centers will be based on the comparative and complementary advantage each location has and also along value chain lines. You may be wondering how this will work. Let's take a Process Service Center in Abakaliki, for example. Emeka, a local farmer, produces maize. Instead of relying solely on the proceeds of the sale of his maize in its pure form, he can enter into an arrangement with the operator of the Process Service Center in his senatorial district, where maize is processed into chicken feed, flour, or cornmeal. This allows Emeka and other farmers like him earn more, improve their livelihood, and increase their production capacity. The value chain will cover grains and cereal, livestock, poultry, fruits, roots and tubers, horticulture, and other areas. Through the implementation of the Green Imperative, 5 million people will be impacted, 100,000 technical personnel will be trained, and 4,848 tractors will be assembled each year, resulting in the ultimate injection of $12 billion into the local economy over 10 years. Additionally, it will increase production and productivity, leading to a reduction in food prices and the cost of living, a drop in food imports, as well as improved food security while boosting exports significantly. The Green Imperative is the first step in the next level of Nigerian agriculture.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, so we're moving from power to the farms. It's important that agriculture continues to remain in focus, even as the government seeks and aspires to grow the national economy. And to this end, it's important also that the means to make agriculture more productive is focused on. And only in January of this year, the government of Brazil and the government of Nigeria, under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, entered into an agreement that will see a mechanization of the entire agricultural value chain in the whole territorial and senatorial districts of Nigeria. And our speaker is from our Brazilian partner. Our next speaker will be speaking on jobs in agriculture through mechanized farming. Our speaker is Mr. Kleber Guarani of FVG. They are implementing partners from the Brazilian government, and for the past 2.5 years, I have been negotiating with Nigeria regarding financing and the operational model that these Green Imperative, as you have seen in the illustration, will imply for the agricultural sector. Ladies and gentlemen, join me make welcome Mr. Kleber Guarani to speak on the next level jobs in agriculture and mechanized farming. Mr. Guarani.
Excellency, Vice President, and authorities, and everybody present. It's a great pleasure to be here and to present the Green Imperative project. So, first of all, I would like to say that we are working together in a partnership with the Nigerian government. In reality, it's a partnership from Brazil and Nigeria. to developing a sustainable agriculture in Nigeria. So it's a major, Green Imperative project is a major agricultural project in Africa. And our main focus is to make a completely technology transfer from Brazil to Nigeria to produce food with a good quality, good cost production in a competitive way. To make it happen, we are working in some pillars. The first pillar is capacity building. It's the most important pillar. And we have a consistent planning for 10 years to transfer technology to training people, mainly youths. The other pillar is to produce in Nigeria machinery and equipment, agricultural machinery equipment. It's impossible to think in a good agriculture, in a great agriculture in Nigeria without thinking in produce your machinery equipment here in Nigeria territory. It's essential. The other pillar is the research center. We have planning to bring here research center to produce seeds with high quality and productivity. And inputs too. We would like to bring the technology to produce inputs here in Nigeria, like fertilizer, pesticides, and other products. So Nigeria has, the agriculture in Nigeria is an important sector for the country. And that's the labor force in agriculture in Nigeria today is more than 6 or 7%. It's easier to think that this sector is very important to reduce the unemployment. So we don't have time. We don't have time to start the project immediately. Okay. Okay. So, okay, go ahead. Then the project, the first pillar, as I said to you, is the agricultural production is related to the capacity building. So we are foreseeing innovation, agricultural innovation technical center to install here in Nigeria, bringing experts from Brazil together with experts from Nigeria to transfer the whole technology. We are foreseeing to start the project immediately, the Green Imperative project. We are ready because we have made in the next almost 2 years the whole studies and planning that we needed to start the project, like in climatic zoning. Right now we understand very much the quality of the soil, climate and relief of the Nigeria, and it's very important. So to give it this big jump in agriculture of Nigeria, we needed to focus, as I said to you, and in the whole country, spread the knowledge in the whole country. And we are foreseeing to have a 70, 80 service center spread in the whole country. The service center will be basically a capability to attend the smallholder farmer in several mechanized agricultural services. So, about the agricultural mechanization, and as I said to you, I think, or we think, that's the best way to start the planning to produce the machinery equipment in Nigeria is with the assembly plants. And for this year, our target is to start this process immediately and to bring the capability to produce those kind of machinery. Just to remind you that Brazil has a similar soil and climate than Nigeria. So we have machinery and equipment very well adapted for this climate. So once you started the production here in Nigeria, we have sure that we are producing the appropriated equipment. So about the innovation, Agricultural Innovation Center, our idea is to make something on the job. We don't believe that we can work in agriculture just using the theory. The theory is not enough. We needed the practical. Show it the youths, show it the technicals on the job, how they make a good job, how the best practice that we needed to apply. So the Agricultural Innovation Center will focus on technical practice. Yes, our target. Our project foreseen some employees. I have some problems with this slide, but I would like to say to you that this program is foreseen to format 100,000 techniques format and 3,000 tractor operators. We are planning to produce in the first stage 10,000 tractors and 3,900 jobs in logistics, 220 jobs in processing plant, because we are aiming all the value chain. It's not agricultural production, but the main target is to add the value in the agricultural products to produce processing, to produce products goes ready to go to the market. And in the first stage, our target is to achieve 390,000 smallholder farmers. And we will create indirect jobs, almost 115,000 indirect jobs. So you can see that the agriculture has a powerful to create jobs in any country. So we have this experience in several countries in the world. It's a machinery of creating jobs and income for the people. So just to finalize, this is our target in that project. We have some expectation, great expectation. We are planning to have 2 assembly plants, plus 4 assembly plants in the second phase of the project. 780 service centers spread in no country, 9,000 tractors to be assembled, and 1.1 billion of investments. The investments we are bringing from Brazil and other partners, and 100,000 techniques in format, mainly in youths. We needed to involve youths a lot in agriculture, mainly in agriculture today, when you have technology inside, and this attracts the youths, and 5 million people impacted. So I used to say that agriculture, especially the Green Imperative Project, has a tremendous potential to collaborate with the social peace, to reduce the employment, and to increase the income for the population. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gorani. Now, we are going to some not too serious business. We are going to do a little quiz. And let's test your knowledge of movies in Nigeria. How many people know of Chief Daddy? Not too many hands up. How many know of King of Boys? Wedding Party? Nigerian movie have seen the industry increase astronomically. Now, so from $1.2 billion investment in mechanized agriculture, we now want to go to the creative industry that, under the economic recovery and growth plan, is to contribute $1 billion by 2020. Our next speaker is the Group Executive Director of Filmhouse Cinemas and is the Managing Director of Film One Distribution and Production Limited. Now, Film One is the largest theatrical distribution company in English-speaking West Africa and is going to describe to us the value chain and the markets in the downstream area and how it connects with the upstream production to create jobs within the Nigerian economy. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, join me make welcome Mr. Moses Baba Tokbe, who will be speaking on jobs, next level jobs in the creative sector. Mr. Baba Tokbe.
Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and his beautiful wife, Mrs. Dolapo Osinbajo. A national icon, a living legend, leader of the All Progressives Congress, and the reason we are here, Asiwaju, Senator Remi Tinubu. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I stand on all existing protocols. Please forgive me if I cannot recognize everyone. It is very, very honorable, and I feel very privileged to be here to talk about an industry that everyone seems to hear about, speak about once in a while, but not so sure if there's anything there as far as economic development is concerned, or as far as economic impact is concerned. And very, very quickly, I know we've been getting a lot of presentations today. Very, very quickly, I'm going to run through the creative sector value chain as a job spinner. So very, very quickly, these are the key sectors that make up the creative industry. It's very broad. It's not as, I mean, we use the down on what the sectors are. To arts and crafts, to design, to photography, to fashion and style, to ancillary products and services. But for the benefit of this presentation, I'm going to narrow down on filmed entertainment. I think it's worthy of note that we should be looking also at the following key sectors on the right of the slide, which is filmed entertainment, music. As we know, music is doing very well for the country in terms of the image it's projecting for the country. Television and radio, as we know, the impact of media. media publication, fashion and lifestyle. I can see everyone in Nigerian attire, most everyone here, the ability to scale that and to even export that. There is a lot of potential in that. And the performing arts. So I would really narrow down to the film and entertainment sector, particularly the cinema sector. Just to give you some key insights as to the gem that is in the cinema sector. It's a sector, as of 2018, that is worth $23 million. And that $23 million is generated by only 45 cinemas. 45 cinemas have generated $23 million, and they've grown at a double-digit rate year on year since 2016. I think it's also instructive to note that between 2016 and 2017 were the period where we went through chronic recession, where we went through the devaluation of the Naira, and yet we had a sector that was growing double digits. And I think it deserves a round of applause if you don't mind. What this has done is that the global market in terms of cinema have also recognized this and are going to give Nigeria an emerging market spotlight in a few days in Las Vegas in the USA. So we're very proud of the developments the cinema sector has made, and that's why we feel like there should be a spotlight, and we think that beyond the impact it's making box office wise, it can make an impact as far as job creation is concerned. These are some insights for you in that sector. About 500 million spent on media equipment, about 3,500 total employees so far, direct and indirect. About 700 million spent from, advertisers within the cinema. So corporates want to advertise their products within the cinemas. Combined, we estimate that they've spent about 700 million. And about 3.5 billion generated in terms of other sales like popcorn, drinks, and all that. Just to also give you an insight, like Ikem, the moderator, said, a driver of the cinema sector is our own films, Nigerian films. These are the top grossing films. I don't know if you can see them very well. They're the top 15 or top 20 grossing films in Nigeria of all time. I think it's noteworthy to mention that as far as cinema going or the cinema culture, it returned in 2004, and it's just about 15 years old. As far as cinema going is concerned, and as far as the content shown in cinema is concerned, Nigerian films are driving the box office. 7 of the top 10 are Nigerian films, hence the mention of The Wedding Party, Chief Daddy, which His Excellency the Vice President went to see, and a number of films. And we're very bullish, and we believe that the local films will continue to drive the sector, creating jobs for the local producers. But as we also build more cinemas, there'll be more jobs created. These are examples of the cinemas that were opened in 2018 on the left side. In the middle, cinemas opening in 2019. Again, all private sector led. So the private sector is the one really driving this. We have 16 cinema companies in Nigeria, a lot of them sourcing capital by themselves. They could do with some assistance, some encouragement as well. And on the right-hand side are the online platforms that we have. In Nigeria, we have Iroko, we have Kwese, we have African Magic, all playing in the value chain, to ensure the film sector is productive. So, the crux of this presentation is, yes, we have these cinemas. Maybe one thing I didn't mention before is that a lot of the cinemas we have now cater to the middle class and the high class, or the HNIs. We think that there is a huge opportunity in the community cinema model. We think that accounts for 60 to 65%, of the population. And these are the people that have been very, instrumental to creating the film sector, because they are the ones that have purchased the films when they were on video. They are the ones that watch the films regularly. They are the ones that have created the fan or celebrity era that we have now. And we think that sector is so underserved. It's our belief that we can plant a cinema in every local government in Nigeria, and a new ecosystem is formed as a result. And these are the things that can be generated from the community cinema. We think that, of course, jobs will be generated, and very soon I will show how jobs can be generated, direct and indirect. We think that economic activity can happen. So in the cinema place, you can buy popcorn. The popcorn seller makes money. The printer that makes the packaging for the popcorn makes money. The technician that is working on the projector makes money. So we think that there's a number of economic activities that can happen as a result of having cinemas at community levels. We also think that it could be good for national orientation if the government supports, for example, through the audiovisual medium, using, the captive experience, captive viewing experience. So we think that this can be, it can do a range of things. We know piracy is a big issue in Nigeria. A way of solving piracy is when you plant some of these, cinemas around the country, there's more access, and it's also very affordable. Ticket prices are supposed to be 300 to 500 naira. So where are the job creation opportunities? From everything I've said, for there to be a cinema, there's got to be content. All right, for there to be content, there's got to be people making the content. And that's why we have the following sections that creates various types of jobs. On the creation side, for the content, we have script writers, directors, producers, sound and audio editing. And imagine we're not rumored. The facts say we make about 2,000 films a year. So imagine the amount of people being employed here. Imagine if we then put in a more structured environment for them where the films can actually go out to cinemas and they can make money back. Imagine the multiplier effect. And those are the film exhibition business, which I also describe the kind of roles that are created in terms of jobs, and then the ancillary distribution platforms, all creating jobs. And for a typical cinema, here are some of the jobs, no specialist skill, things that you can easily train people, from the managers to the supervisors to the retail staff selling you popcorn, to the technicians, to the security staff, to the handymen, to the cleaners. Those are people that can typically be in a cinema environment. And we reckon that there can be up to 20 or 25 per cinema. And obviously, in terms of indirect jobs or additional jobs, we have, sorry, I've skipped. Health and management, logistics, all those kind of services that are attached to community cinemas. And we've just done a brief, breakdown as to how we think we can get to an optimal position as far as this cinema spread is concerned in the country. And we think that at 900 locations, we will be optimal, but we still have capacity for more. And we think with 700 locations, maybe covering the, most of the local governments, we could really see a direct impact on employment. So we think that there's at least 22,500 direct jobs. And like the Minister of Trade Investment mentioned, we think there'll be a multiplier effect. And this sector alone could easily deliver 100,000 jobs. Sorry for my voice. So I'm wrapping up. Very, very quickly, what are the next steps? Funding. We're not asking for handouts. We're not asking for, sponsorship. We're just asking for enabling environments. We're asking for, affordable capital. And I have to credit the BOI for the great job they've done in really stimulating the industry. We're asking for better interagency cooperation. We're asking that the Censors Board, you should get its independence. It works well with the Film Institute and the Film Corporation. We're asking for better legislation and better interface with the lawmakers. We're asking for fiscal incentives. We're asking that let's be more deliberate and more intentional about building the industry as opposed to opportunistic and looking for another sector that is revenue generating. How do we make it more sustainable? How do we make it more impactful? That's what we should be thinking about. And basically, this is a summary of everything we've been talking about. In terms of, yes, we had challenges in the beginning. We see an opportunity. We think we can make global impact. A lot of my presentation today has been what we can do in Nigeria. There's another minefield in terms of what we're exporting out of Nigeria, and the potential for foreign exchange is massive. But we want to keep it of what we can do to generate jobs in Nigeria. And permit me to be a little cheeky. So I'm privileged to have known the celebrant of the day. I just wanted to say one or two things. That's 16 years ago, at my father's 50th birthday. I just wanted to say, I've always known him to be the supporter of the creative industry. And that's 2011 in London at a sold-out Afrobeats event. And 2019, I wrote a title here, perhaps we should do a film, Diary of a Political Genius, the BAT story. How about that? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful day.
Baba Tokbe. Okay, next, we are moving from the creative sector to the phenomenon referred to as business process outsourcing. That young people and a lot of young unemployed Nigerians can't find expression in the workplace through outsourcing. Now, business process outsourcing essentially means carrying out a specific business function for consumers in another country, in a country such as Nigeria, and Nigerian employees doing some work for a client who is in the United Kingdom or in the United States of America. Now, these functions are as diverse as they come, from customer support to basic call center services, to marketing, to accounting, to legal services, and the whole bevy of the digital media industry in animation, filmmaking, illustration, and even in computer programming. So these services are really one of the ways that this administration has identified as a means to employing millions, as other jurisdictions have done. India is one success story that is often spoken about, just as Malaysia, Indonesia, and recently we have seen incursions even in African countries. Nigeria's plan is to pioneer and lead the outsourcing effort because all the factors favor Nigeria. We are the second highest speakers of English globally. We have a workforce that mostly are trained in universities and with a college education can grasp what foreign clients would need. To speak to us about business process outsourcing at the next level, we have a company who has pioneered these efforts in Kaduna. The company, Outsourcing Global, is led by Amal Hassan. And today the company is represented by Hassan Maruf Mukhtar. And they are going to show us how they have, against all odds, thrived in procuring clients from other jurisdictions and shown that this is a proof of concept. So we will look at a multimedia presentation that describes this in a few minutes, while Mr. Hassan Maruf Mukhtar makes his way to make his presentation on behalf of Outsource Global. So please, multimedia.
Amal Hassan, founder and CEO of Outsource Global. Outsource is the first international contact center stroke business process outsourcing company in Nigeria. I started my first business in 2003 with an. We've trained a lot of get employed. So I started researching on what I could do to change the employment situation of our people. I stumbled on BPO. I looked at India and realized that business process outsourcing provided millions of jobs to Indians. At the time that I was researching, it provided about 2.2 million jobs. And I said, why not Nigeria? I looked at the parameters. Nigeria, we have better English-speaking people. We have very good educated workforce. We have better timeline than India. We have the right infrastructure. And I said, we can do it. And I moved towards setting up the company. We went live June 2016. Within 1 year of operations, we achieved our 5-year plan. We have made Nigeria an outsourcing destination.
At Outsource Global, we have 4 main core values: to have integrity at all times, to insist on the highest standards, to make an impact, and to constantly be improving. And these core values, they're not just words that we put on a poster, they're things that we live by every single day. They actually dictate who we hire into the company and how we evaluate our staff during their evaluation periods. One of the great things about Outsource Global is that we can cater to so many different types of clients. Some clients prefer to be handheld throughout the whole operations process, and we can account for that. Other clients would prefer to just tell us, this is what I need done, run with it, and we have the ability to run through that from beginning to end.
We have qualified individuals that have different specializations. We have lawyers that are servicing the US market. We have IT people that are servicing the US market. We have medical practitioners servicing the US market. We have people that are specialized in different fields servicing the US market. So if we could do it for US, we could actually do it for other countries as well. And what we gave our American client is purely American accent.
Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and his wife, the person we are all here in honor of, Your Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, permit me to stand on all existing protocols. Can we have the slides, please? More than decades ago, companies started outsourcing their businesses, process, and functions to offshore locations. This is mainly to cut down on costs and focus on core business activities. Since then, the global outsourcing industry has come a long way. A brief look at the global outsourcing market. Last year alone, the industry recorded $86.5 billion US. That is 12 million higher than the previous year in 2017. Outsourcing today provides 1.3 million jobs globally, and these numbers are expected to grow to about 1.7 million jobs in the next few years. India, Philippines, Brazil, and China are the top outsourcing destinations in the world today. A research shows that 78% of companies that outsource a business process are satisfied with the outcome. Outsourcing being a service export contributes significantly to the GDP of a country through foreign exchange earnings. Today, Nigeria is uniquely positioned to benefit from the global outsourcing market with its comparatively better time zone with respect to Europe and the US. Our better English diction and a high volume of English speakers is also an advantage. Teaming educated youth population with thousands of youths graduating annually. This is important because most outsourcing entry jobs require little or no. When compared with countries like India and Philippines, who have created multi-billion-dollar industries from global outsourcing, we are definitely in a position to do better if we try. This is exactly what Amal Hassan has done with Outsource Global since its inception. A brief look at our story. We started operations in the year 2016, and like Amal earlier mentioned, we're able to achieve our 5-year plan in the first year due to the demand globally. We have created over 800 direct jobs cutting across various professions like IT, lawyers, medical professionals, and many more. And we're still not able to meet the international demand today. We are also big on empowering women. Our gender ratio as it stands today is 50-50, with 80% of leadership roles occupied by women. We also focus on recruiting economically and physically challenged individuals, bringing them into a competitive, diverse workforce. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering how we're able to achieve this in a short period. Outsource Global is the first international contact center and business process outsourcing company provider in Nigeria. Today, we are successfully making Nigeria and Africa an international business process outsourcing destination. We're the first IAOP-compliant commercial call center in West Africa. What this means is not just in terms of technology compliance, but from the seating arrangements to workstation dimensions, to lighting in the production floors, to temperature, and many more are all in line with international BPO standard, which is what international clients look at before they outsource to a BPO company. We are also the first Nigerian call center serving the UK and US market, making up about 80% of our current clients. We currently operate from an ultra-modern facility in Abuja, Lagos, and Kaduna. We are also set to build a 5,000-seater facility here in Abuja to meet the growing demand of outsourcing jobs in Nigeria. Next slide, please. This year's colloquium is focused on jobs and the economy, which are also among the key focus on the next level. You'll be glad to know, Your Excellency, Outsource Global has been in the forefront of improving the status quo. We seek to positively impact the employment and income challenge among our youth by creating diverse jobs, spanning various professionals or knowledge-based services, provided to an international businesses at competitive rates. In terms of economic impact, 70% of our revenue is earned from foreign exchange, and strongly believe that at scale, our industry can contribute significantly to Nigeria's non-oil export earnings. Currently, India and Philippines are the top outsourcing destinations in the world. We strongly believe Nigeria is better positioned to be the global leader in BPO based on comparative advantages earlier mentioned. We believe the federal government can improve the underdeveloped BPO sector and create business-friendly policies that will promote sustainable growth of the sector, ultimately at the end leading to job creation and economic stability. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mukhtar. So just to invite everyone who's attending the colloquium to note that we have a wide curation of content that we ensure encapsulates all the ideas that are expressed either here or by experts within the sectors that we speak about. So I'm sure you might have them in your folder or your package, and it's there's this book is an illustrated guide. Who is Bola Tinubu? Is an illustration of the biography of our celebrant. Then there's a what is social investment. Then this year's theme, what is next level? Then also our publication, our official journal for the year is titled Next Level. Please endeavor to keep and go through them. So we have come to the highlight of this segment, which is the thematic area, before we move to the part where we get to celebrate. But to give the chairman's summary and remarks, we are going to invite someone who has been a key organizer of the colloquium for over the years. And but just before that, talking about books, we have the Vice Chancellor of Lagos State, Professor Lanre Fagbon, who has put together a compilation of thoughts on statesmanship and political leadership in honor of our celebrant. Can Professor Lanre Fagbon quickly come to just give a 1-minute introduction of what this book is about and present it to our celebrant? The Vice Chancellor of Lagos State University, Professor Lanre Fagbon.
Your Excellency, the Vice President and his amiable wife, Your Excellency, the honoree of today and distinguished Senator Oluremi Tinubu, Your Excellencies here present, ladies and gentlemen. The book, the 562-page book that I am about to present, is a serious work of scholarship. I'm able to say that His Excellency, the honoree of today, became aware of this publication just 4 days ago on Monday night. And he saw the book for the very first time this morning when we went to see him. Your Excellencies, several scholars who have explored the role that qualitative leadership and statesmanship can play in building a persistent culture of responsibility, enduring social norms, and an institutional culture of sustainability have come to the conclusion that the death of leadership is indeed a defining challenge. It is against the background that the Lagos State University deemed it necessary to bring together distinguished scholars from across different schools of thought to share perspectives on the theme, statesmanship and leadership in Nigeria, analysis of development in Nigeria's Fourth Republic, a first script in honor of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The edited book contains 22 highly analytical peer-reviewed scholarly presentations. There are 2 sections to the book. The first section contains intellectual discourses of the problematic dimensions of the competing perspectives of statesmanship and leadership. It covers topical subjects spanning the national question, including restructuring, political defection and democratic consolidation, godfatherism and political leadership, stomach infrastructure and political culture, historical evolution of the party system in Nigeria and conflict management in latter democracies, the institutional challenges for successful electoral management. In the second section are a set of articles which interrogate different dimensions of Asiwaju's political leadership brand and characterization of aspects of the national question. 2 chapters examine the bureaucracy and media in the period between 1999 and 2007. A glimpse into other chapters show robust discussions addressing the following: the developmental vision of Tinubu and his state-building drive, a content analysis of the Jagaban brand, the crisis of fiscal federalism in Nigeria, with focus on the confrontation on creation of local government and the federation account. Whilst one article attempts to assess Tinubu's contribution to Pan-Africanism, the 2 other articles attempt the psychological and sociological profiling of Tinubu as a charismatic in a classical Weberian sense. A final article examines the place of Tinubu in the Yoruba political space. The foreword is written by the Honorable Minister for Power, Housing and Works, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, SAN, while the preface was written by distinguished Professor Peter Okebukola. Why Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu? His Excellency, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a Pan-African leader whose charity in public service and political leadership is already firmly rooted. Asiwaju is a natural curator of talents and a rallying point of what is possible in pursuit of excellence in leadership and statesmanship. Through his foresight, Lagos remains Nigeria's center of excellence. His political leadership skills continue to inspire progressive aspirations across the nook and cranny of Africa. In the context of epistemology and teachings, the heritage of Ebola Tinubu is neither problematic nor complex for his followers and any curious thinker to identify. Just like Marx, Bola Tinubu's is a theory of ideas and reality. He understands the new Lagos anchored on he understands the primacy of reality and the determination of ideas by reality. The way Tinubu started the new Lagos, anchored on the nation of an overall blueprint, is idealism. On the other hand, his response of looking inwards, when Lagos State was seriously challenged by the decision of the Obasanjo administration, is reflective of the ideology of a realist. The Lagos State University, in conclusion, seeks to leverage on the Tinubu brand and legacy to inspire current and future generations of leaders, statesmen, and visionary leaders. This is a prelude to the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu Spirit of Africa Awards that we'll be holding subsequently. On behalf of the visitor of our university, the governing council of our university, and the entire university community, we wish His Excellency a happy birthday. Thank you very much.
Different speakers have all been speaking in favor of the zones of industries narrated by the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. Of course, these industries will need adequate power supply, and this Transmission Company of Nigeria has assured that
get a sense of what next level in summary means for the Buhari administration. The chairman of our colloquium is His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, and is ably represented by His Excellency the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who we must now please stand up as we welcome him to come give his remarks. The Vice President.
Thank you very much. Please sit. Honoree and celebrant Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the Jagaban Bogu and the Jagaban of the universe, and his dear wife, herself a notable political phenomenon, ranking Senator Oluremi Tinubu, the national chairman of the APC, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole, and former chairman of the APC, Baba Bisi Akonde, Baba Omo KKK, all other leaders of the APC here present, Your Excellencies, governors of various states present, led by Governor Akinwumi Ambode, our chief host, His Excellency Abdulaziz Yari of Zamfara State, His Excellency Mohammed Abubakar of Bauchi State, His Excellency Abiola Ajimobi of Oyo State, His Excellency Adegboyega Oyetola of Osun State, His Excellency Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State, His Excellency Oluwarotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State, His Excellency Governor Lalong of Plateau State, former Governor of Osun State, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, the Governor-elect of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Deputy Governor of Edo State, Comrade Philip Shuaibu. Members of the National Assembly present, members of the Federal Executive Council present, service chiefs, and I believe the Inspector General of Police in particular is here, Your Excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, our Royal Fathers present, Imperial Majesty the Oni of Ife, Oba Ogunwusi Ojaja II, His Royal Majesty the Owa Obokun, who is also present today, His Royal Majesty the Ewi of Ado-Ekiti, Oba Rufus Adejugbe, His Royal Majesty the Oshemawe of Ondo, Dr. Victor Kiladejo, His Royal Highness Kitaro II of Bogu Kingdom, Barrister Mohammed Dantoro, His Royal Highness the Honor of Abaji, Dr. Adamu Baba Yunusa, and the representative of my own Kabiesi, the representative of the Caribou of Remoland, the Alado of Ado, His Royal Highness Oba Amisu Sholagbade Tijani, and all other royal fathers who are present here today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are here for the 11th edition of the Bola Tinubu Colloquium. This is a yearly development gathering, a yearly gathering where we try to question and interrogate some of the difficult questions on economic and social development, not just in Nigeria, but across the world. We do it in celebration of a man who has spent the last 30 years of his life in creative and catalytic public service. He has, from his days as governor of Lagos State, provided clarity of thought and vision, pioneering vision in all aspects of governance. He is not a lawyer, as many of us know, but there are few Nigerians who have provoked so many legal controversies and constitutional challenges, resulting in several landmark judicial rulings, especially in the area of federalism and what today is loosely described as restructuring. Many of us know, of course, that he's not an engineer, but a lot of his vision is what is responsible for what we see today in Lagos. The BRT, many know the bus rapid transport, the Lekki Industrial Zone, even the Eco-Atlantic project, which is a private project, but which he initiated as governor of Lagos State. And of course, the reform in the tax system of Lagos State. Today, Lagos, as we know, earns more revenue, more IGR, than 31 states of Nigeria put together. That by itself began in 2001 with a very innovative way in which he reformed the tax system in Lagos and created an independent Lagos Inland Revenue Service. Several African countries and states of Nigeria have engaged the LIRS as consultants for their own reform efforts. But how about electoral reform? In 2007, when our party, then the ACN, was rigged out of elections in Osun, in Ekiti, in Ondo, and in Edo State, I was asked, he invited me to his residence, as Asiwaju invited me to his residence at Bodilon. And he said to me, the only way by which we can possibly reclaim the states that have been taken away from us by this rigging is going through the courts. And he said to me that the only way is by proving that there was multiple voting. In other words, proving that a few people simply thumbprinted ballot papers into ballot boxes, and they were counted in favor of the opposition, then of course the PDP. He then said to me that the only way we can do this is by somehow, he says, I don't know how you are going to do it, but somehow proving by forensic evidence that this is exactly what happened. I said to him, I said, Asiwaju, look, nobody has ever proved an electoral case, an electoral petition by forensic evidence. There's just no history of it. He said, and I said, what is even more? We have over a million ballot papers. If we consider all of the ballot papers in each of these states, there are over a million, or in fact, at the time, there were about 1.3 million ballot papers, putting together all the states. And how can we prove multiple voting? He said, you know, Yemi, I've told you what my own view is. You just go and look for a way of sorting this out. So I went to the UK and met with possibly the most experienced fingerprint expert in the entire United Kingdom, a gentleman called Adrian Forty, introduced to me by some of the QCs who I'd worked with in the UK. And when I told Adrian Forty the enormity of the problem, he laughed and almost fell off his chair. He said, in all my own almost 50 years of experience as a fingerprint expert, I have not even done up to 4,000 fingerprints. You are now saying that I should come and do 1.3 million fingerprints. Come on, I mean, that's almost impossible. Anyway, so we parted that day, that was a Thursday. And then he called me back on a Monday and said, let's talk again about this crazy thing that you had suggested. And we sat and talked about it. And somehow we designed a way. He said, of course, we used a bit of technology. But most importantly, we were able to get fingerprint experts. He said to me, he said, the only way is to get the number of fingerprint experts that have never been assembled before. I said, about how many? He said, a minimum of 50 fingerprint experts. In the end, we hired 63 fingerprint experts, 63. 50 of them were from the UK police. What was even more interesting about that was that even to get the UK police to support us, Asiwaju had to come all the way from Nigeria to come and talk to friends and people who he knew to try and persuade the authorities to let us use the UK police. In the end, they allowed us to, of course, in the spare time of those policemen. And we got an additional 10 policemen. Altogether, 63 policemen working flat out for almost 6 months. We were able to put together for the first time, definitely in the history of electoral petitions anywhere in the world, we were able to put together a solid forensic case that showed that all of the places where we were defeated, it was on account of multiple thumbprinting. And we also demonstrated that it was impossible for those who said they voted. For instance, we showed that if you cast 20,000 votes in a particular unit, when we calculated the time that it takes to cast one single vote, it's usually above 5 minutes. But we discovered that our friends in that other political party were able to cast their votes in 5 seconds, because all they were doing was simply thumbprinting. They just simply take out a booklet and thumbprint as many as possible. So we were able to demonstrate all of that in court. Cut a long story short, one by one, we were able to get back the states that had been taken away from us. The only way by which that could ever have been achieved is surely not just by the vision, but by the determination of the leader of our leader at that time. It was, of course, the leader of the ACN at the time. And he showed the kind of leadership that was very, very rare, of course. Not only defining what he thought was the way forward, but also supporting it in every way and backing it to the very end. The last state that we finally won was Osun State. After almost 3 years of battling, we finally won Osun State. And I think that, one of the things that you will say that all of us will agree with about our celebrant today is just that his dogged attitude, his refusal to accept no for an answer. Asiwaju also pioneered merit in cabinet appointments in particular. And I want to emphasize this because one of the major drawbacks that we have as a nation is that way by which we are blindsided into thinking that we can avoid merit and expect to achieve great things. We simply cannot avoid merit. I think Asiwaju demonstrated in the years when he was governor that political appointments, especially cabinet appointments, he simply looked for those that he considered the best possible material at the time, wherever they were from. So for the first time in the history of Lagos State, we had cabinet members from other parts of the country, beginning with other parts of the Southwest. Rauf Aregbesola, of course, is from Osun State. I from Ogun State. Wale Edun from Ogun State. Athawari from Delta. He became the first commissioner for lands. Lai Mohammed from Kwara State. Dele Alake from Ekiti State. And so many others. For the first time, we appointed judges from other, in fact, I've forgotten Ben Akabueze. Ben Akabueze, of course, from Anambra State, was commissioner for economic planning and budget after Yemi Cardoso. And for several years after that, he served as commissioner for budget and national planning. But also judges, the appointment of judges from everywhere else in the country. Justices Onyabo and Justice Sibyl Nwaka were both appointed to be judges of Lagos State. There is no other state in the country except some states in the north where you've seen the appointment of individuals from other states. And Asiwaju pioneered that. Just picking the best people, no matter where they're from, is a very important part of our story as a country. So every once in a while, I think that history gives us one or two persons who are gifted, transformative leaders. And I believe that our country has been gifted by this great transformative leader, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I believe very strongly that this man's political trajectory has only just begun. He's a man who has tremendous giftings, and is a man who I believe God has a great plan ahead for. I pray for you, Asiwaju, that as your days, so shall your strength, so shall your wisdom, and so shall your favor with God. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. I'll just say a word or two about the next level. As you know, the expression next level itself was our political campaign slogan in these last elections. And what we were saying was simply that there was a next phase to what our country had seen. There are many who would say that there were several things that were promised in 2015 which had not yet been realized. But I think the best way of putting it is to simply say that our country, for the first time, is experiencing a type of leadership that is bound to lead us to where it is that we have purpose for ourselves as a government. In my view, the honest leadership, a leadership with integrity of our President Muhammadu Buhari, is a very important component of getting anywhere at all in all of our development plans. I'd said before at the last colloquium that Nigeria's main problem is not a lack of ideas, is not a lack of projects or programs. It was most of the time, especially with the leadership in the past, was a lack of integrity in leadership. And corruption in particular was the reason why we were finding it difficult to make any progress. And I explained that that's why we earned $383 billion in 4 years, 2010 to 2014, the highest ever in the history of our country, the highest ever. And yet, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, not done. Lagos-Kano Rail, all of what is being done today, not done. We cannot point to a single major project, a single major infrastructure project that was completed in a 10-year period, despite the high earnings, including power. So a government coming after so many years of waste must be a government, first, that emphasizes fiscal prudence, a government that emphasizes integrity in public finance, so that we manage the little resources we have to achieve the maximum that can be achieved. And that is what President Muhammadu Buhari set out to do. As I keep saying, the president has never claimed to be an orator. And we all know that he's not an orator. He just gets things done. It was under President Muhammadu Buhari that 3 of the 4 refineries that we have today were built when he was Minister for Petroleum. 3,500 kilometers of pipelines were built by him as Minister of Petroleum in a 3-year period. So there's a track record here, not of talking, but of just getting things done. And this is what we've seen in the past 4 years. That is why we're able to put aside the money for the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and that is going on apace at the moment. That is why we've opened the first phase of the Lagos-Kano Railway. And that was commissioned just a few weeks before, a couple of days, I think it was just last month, that was commissioned, the Lagos-Abeokuta-Ibadan phase of that project. The Itape-Warri Railway, now completed, after 35 years of being on the books. The Abuja Rail, the light rail project here in Abuja, started in 2005. Budget after budget, never completed. Was completed also at the end of 2017. Now we have that light rail. Now we have that light rail from the airport to Idu. And same as several other projects, several other major infrastructural projects. Mambila Hydro has been on the cards for 40 years. We've just put together the resources to begin that project. And we will complete this project. So for us, infrastructure is critical at the next level. You cannot have power, you cannot have a situation where you have the kinds of power situations we have today and expect transformative development. That is why we're focused on power and other infrastructure. We're focused on fixing the infrastructure in our country. And we believe that if we're able to fix the infrastructure, the roads, the rail, and especially power, we'll be able to make significant progress. Today, our rail project starts from the Apapa port so that we're able to clear the congestion in that port because the rail, the Lagos-Kano rail, begins from the Apapa port and we can start taking out cargo from the Apapa port using rail. as an alternative means of transportation. The same is true of agriculture, and you just heard our partners from Brazil talking about the agro-industrial phase of agricultural development. And we're committed to that project because we believe that that is what will transform the agro-industrial phase of our planning. And that's what will transform agriculture in this country and create the additional jobs that we require. It's not enough to have farmers everywhere. We need the refining capacity, we need the processing capacity. And that is what our partnership with the Brazilians will provide for us. Same is true of the reforms that we're making in education and healthcare. Today, the emphasis is on digital literacy. The emphasis is on training our teachers to be able to train the next generation of children in school. And we're focused on doing so using some of the methods that we've described very comprehensively, not just in the ARGP, but in our next level document, which I hope will be made available today. So we're focusing on science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths, not STEM, but STEAM, because we've added arts to it. We're focusing on training young people in digital skills, critical thinking, and various other skills that are necessary for the sorts of jobs that the 21st century will provide. The same is true of healthcare. Our focus on healthcare will be on national health insurance because we cannot finance healthcare by the budget alone. It's compulsory national health insurance that's going to open the doors for financing healthcare, or financial healthcare for us. Finally, we're also talking again about social investment, our social investment program. At the next level, we're of course going to expand the social investment program. At the moment, the program is the biggest of its kind anywhere in the African continent, where we are feeding every day in our school feeding program 9.2 million children across 26 states, every single day. That program is important not just from the point of view of providing nutrition for many of the young people in public schools, many of whom come from very poor parents, and many who may not be assured of a decent meal a day. That is a very important program for us also because of the multiplier effect on agriculture and also on distribution of those products, and of course those we employ as cooks and other services. The same is true of our Trader Money program, the Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program, GEEP. Trader Money, Market Money, and all of that, where we're giving money to the bottom of the trading pyramid in Nigeria. We lend them it's a program, of course, as you know, of the Bank of Industry. We lend 10,000 naira to this bottom of the pyramid traders. Once they repay, we give them 15,000 naira. All of this is done on an electronic platform and is on their mobile phones. And they get 15,000 naira when they pay back 20, 25, all the way up to 100. The same is true of our Market Money, which we give to cooperatives. And we've done so far, Trader Money, almost over 1 million, and Market Money, which is to the cooperatives, almost 500,000. And we intend to expand the scope of that. We also intend to expand the scope of our NPower program, which is our jobs program for young people, young graduates coming out of school and some non-graduates. At the moment, we're engaging 500,000 of such young people. I'm paying them every month. Most of them now have a device such as I have, which contains training materials for enhancing their employability skills. And that device also helps us to track several things that we want to track, and also helps them to provide services, especially survey services, marketing, research and marketing services to people who may engage their services. We intend to expand that program because we must expand the program. 1.7 million people come out of school and are looking for jobs every single year. We're able to bridge that gap with engaging 500,000 of them as soon as they get out of the youth corps. But we need to expand that. If we don't expand it, of course, the numbers continue to increase. So the next level promises to be exciting. It promises to be as challenging as possibly where we're coming from. But as the president has said repeatedly, we have no other focus, we have no other commitment but the progress of this country. And we will ensure that step by step we get to where it is that we promised the country that we're taking the country to. So I want to say to you all that the next level is for all of us. And I urge that all of us cooperate to take us to this next level. So on behalf of the President, Muhammadu Buhari, who I represent here today, again, I'd like to wish Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu a happy birthday and say thank you all very much for making the time to come to this event. God bless you all.
A resounding round of applause for His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Before we go to the next segment, we'd like to acknowledge His Imperial Majesty Oba Frederick Obateru Akinruntan Olugbo of Ugboland, Ilaje, Ondo, and His Excellency to be the Governor-elect Mr. Abdul Rahman Abdulaziz, Governor-elect of Kwara State. Okay, so everyone has heard of the famous Lagos blueprint. 2 decades ago, 20 years ago, we had a similar scenario where there was a government in waiting, about to be inaugurated, but had been elected. Now, there's a product that came out of deliberations and policy discussions that our celebrant, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, assembled the best minds around Lagos and around the country to come together to have a serious and rigorous thought around the issues that confronted Lagos at the time. Now, we have put together a documentary of some of the key actors that we call the usual suspects, explaining some of the behind-the-scene moments during what was the formation and implementation of the blueprint. Multimedia, the blueprint documentary will play now.
Federal capital machinery, poultry revenues, the newly elected governor knew he had to think outside the box to chart a strategy to address the multifaceted issues confronting Lagos. Assembling a team of the best minds in the public and private sector and academia, a concrete set of ideas and proposals emerged from between January and May 1999 that culminated in what later became referred to as the blueprint. 2 decades on, Lagos has become the 5th largest economy in Africa, and those ideas and proposals in the blueprint shaped much of what Lagos is today. Some of these ideas were audacious and revolutionary, others unpopular, but Asiwaju was both a visionary and was courageous in advancing his convictions. Critical to conveying and implementing the blueprint was a team. This year, we have asked some members of that team for their reflections on the Lagos blueprint and Asiwaju Bola Tinubu's role in formulating and executing this vision for Lagos.
When the administration started 1999, again, we inherited a system whereby every single approval needed to go to the governor. And you can imagine what a Herculean task that was. I recollect talking to Asiwaju about this, that granted, this is a system we've inherited, but I just didn't think it was tenable, that there needed to be a change. He spoke to 1 or 2 of the members of the bureaucracy who had been there before, and she was advised that, look, you know, this just has to be the way. So I went back, reflected over it, spoke to some of my people, and came up with a memo which basically gave approval limits to people within government. The people more concerned with finance, like the Honorable Commissioner for Finance, Mr. Wale Edun at the time, the Chief of Staff, the Governor's Office, and myself. And took the memo to Asiwaju, and believe me, within 15 minutes, he signed it off.
I've never known him to play politics when it comes to governance. He was always very straightforward, and like we said, he listens to spare arguments, and he gets it done and signed.
He has an uncanny ability to detect talent and assign people appropriate roles. To me, that is his greatest strength. Identifying people and assigning to them suitable responsibility that will bring the best from them and the best in them. For the first time, he appointed, for the first time possibly in the history of the state, commissioners were appointed who are not necessarily Lagos State indigenous, who are not Lagos State indigenous. So, for example, I was appointed Attorney General from Ogun State. Wale is also from Ogun State, Commissioner for Finance. Regbe Shola from Osun State, Commissioner for Works. The Chief of Staff at the time, Lai Mohammed from Kwara State. You know, so there was, I think, you know, and of course, Dele Alake was Information and Strategy from Ekiti State. So, you know, that recognition, first of all, that Lagos has abundant talent, you know, and that they can come from anywhere. You know, eventually we had also the likes of Fola Thawari, who from Delta State, who became the first commissioner for lands. Ben Akabo is the budget and planning commissioner, and he seeks to surround himself with those who can challenge him, people who will not just agree with him. He enjoys debates, serious and perplexing debates, virtually everything.
Not only was he a good listener, a tireless listener, one of the first things I picked from him in those early days, those heady days when he was governor-elect, was he said, look, I'm always willing to bow to superior argument. If you want to hear a superior argument, you have to be able to listen to all. You have to be willing to listen to them all. At that time, he got together a good number of stakeholders, included private sector people, people who'd been in government, members of the bureaucracy at the time, members of civil society, academia, and people who were relevant to charting the future course of Lagos. And over a period of time, those stakeholders were divided up into groups and worked on plans. After that, of course, there was a policy group which now distilled that information and then came out with what essentially metamorphosized into the blueprint. Okay, they distilled everything, summarized, and then came out with a blueprint for every single sector.
Again, it's quite interesting. It's necessary to say that some members of the policy formulation and committees were made heads of important ministries budget, justice, chief of staff to the governor, works, information, and strategy, and among others, and finance. So the critical mass of about 5 to 6 members of executive who, in the first instance, were in the Policy Formulation and Development Committee, ensured that, one, a leadership core of the ESCO was developed, and through that, influenced the other members to be focused and committed to the framework developed. So
it was very critical at that time that the top leadership, and Asiwaju in particular, was committed to ensuring that this blueprint was something that everybody imbibed and was committed to ensuring that it was implemented.
Tinubu himself, Asiwaju Tinubu, constantly rallied the pack, but maintained a very close relationship with the core group. He used to meet with the core group virtually every day. And the core group reviewed our performance, the ones of the ESCO and the government, on a weekly basis.
He stayed there and was committed to it. So by the time he finished, he knew what was going on in every single ministry with respect to what their goals and responsibilities were, such that when any proposals came to him for a certain thing to be done, the first thing you'd ask is it in the blueprint?
The blueprint had in it a very important component of the blueprint was the justice sector reform. And we had very clearly outlined what that whole administration of justice reform would involve in the blueprint. And that blueprint was presented to the then governor-elect, and we all sort of agreed what the essential components would be. So when I was then subsequently appointed Attorney General, I already had with me, going into that office, a very clear and defined blueprint for the justice sector and what we would do. As a matter of fact, one of the things that he kept saying was that we needed a judiciary of bright young minds who were independent, not a judiciary that could be controlled by the executive, because as he kept saying, when you're out of office, if you control the judiciary when you're in office, what are you going to do when you're out of office? So those who come next will then control it, and then you who used to control it then become, in some senses, the victim of the kind of system that you set. So he was very concerned about independence of the judiciary. And I think that one of the things that we were able to achieve with that, obviously, was the fact that Lagos State then became, in many senses, the benchmark, or the reference point for judiciaries across the country. Today, it looks, nice, and, IGR has gone up so much, etc., etc., etc. But the challenges met along the way were phenomenal. And I think it is to the credit of Asiwaju that he was happy to let this process play itself out. He didn't interfere. Basically, hearing it from independent people made a big difference as to how we were able to resolve many of these things. From justice that developed laws and judicial policies that aided the generation of revenue to finance, that was at the heart of Integrated Revenue Service itself, the autonomy we granted the IRS department to the information management that ensured that the people of the state were regularly informed about our activities and motivated to partner with the government.
Asiwaju was somebody who put his full support behind revenue generation. And he took a very bold step in that he took the Board of Internal Revenue out of the Ministry of Finance. And by the time he was leaving office, we had reached 8 billion a month, which basically was at par with the federal allocation. And by 2015, Lagos State was generating 23 billion per month, which was about 3 times the federal allocation. So we had reached the position whereby even without any federal money or revenue, Lagos State could fund its own activities.
He does not shy away from any assignment, and it's quite bold. It's no courageous, nothing frightens him. He pursues whatever he believes in, and we all agree on, with such a gusto that you wonder where he gets the energy from. He is never tired.
When we came in, the federal government had had a procedure of, first of all, deducting a certain amount before putting the money into the pot to be shared amongst the states and the federal government as a federal allocation. They had what we called first line charges. He is the one who is the then Attorney General that led all the other states to victory against the federal government. And that's a fundamental move in favor of federalism, in favor of the autonomy of the states financially.
I was riding with him in his car, coming from Marina, coming to Alausa to the office. There's a place just outside the office where people used to stand and protest, you know. So this day we passed by the place and there was nobody at all, not a soul. So he looked at me and said, am I still the governor? I think, you know, for him, controversy and in many cases, what many saw as difficulties and all of that. He actually, I think he actually relished those things and came at them with, in my view, such enthusiasm that you sometimes wondered. He seemed to enjoy controversy and he seemed to thrive, you know, even when he was confronted with what many would consider very difficult situations that of course circumstances. So he was very unique in that way.
Asiwaju, may I wish you a very happy, many happy returns, and many more years of service to the family, to the state, and of course, to our beloved Nigeria. God bless.
Asiwaju, happy birthday. I know you are someone that tends, and particularly in a day like this where you have so many around you, that there's a tendency for you to keep networking and seeing how to take the envelope to a different level. But please, for a change, take it easy today, relax, enjoy your day.
You started it all. Happy birthday. Don't work too hard. You've just come out of another success story with the last election. God bless you.
Asiwaju, happy birthday. As your days, so shall your strength, so shall your wisdom, and so shall your favor with God. In Jesus' mighty name. Amen. We are all your children, so to say. But please take time off to be the real family man that you should be. I wish you a good celebration of your birthday. May you live to see the Nigeria of our dream, which will lead Africa and the black race in how best to govern ourselves and be part of the committee of successful nations and people in the world. Happy birthday, Asiwaju. May the good Lord preserve you for us.
Happy birthday, Asiwaju.
Happy birthday, sir. Now it's time for us to invite our iconic celebrant, the man who's larger than life by every description you can imagine. His Excellency, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the Jagaban of Bogu, to give his remarks. Please, can we stand up as we applaud him as he makes his way to the podium?
You are the son of the nation. Congratulations. Happy birthday to you. Asiwaju, you are the son of the nation. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please have your seat. First of all, let me thank Mr. President, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammad Buhari, for even allowing the Vice President and many members of his cabinet and putting efforts together for himself to be here. I know he had a critical diversion, not because of Lagos or Abuja traffic, but because of the social responsibility to the pensioners and their gratuity. He had wanted to be here. I want to say a big thank you to him and his wife, Aisha Buhari. To my dear friend, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, I saw you on the documentary now reflecting about those days. Well, I must thank you too. You are just a reflection of good human beings that are talented but evasive. And I read somewhere, not only talents that do make a human being and a great leader, there are so many unrewarded talents. It's like a proverb across the world. But character matters. Commitment, loyalty, and dedication. Yemi, thank you. You have shown that. You've demonstrated that all along. And it's a great thing that I've enjoyed. To our dear wife and sister, Mrs. Dolapo Osinbajo, thank you for your commitment to the betterment of our nation and your true dedication as a mother, as an handy person who had been, helping our youth to develop in so many aspects of our country and socio-economic programs. Thank you. Our elders here are present. Baba Konde, Alhaji Safuntu, and many aged and leaders present. Kabiesis, emirs, our traditional rulers and fathers. I'll come back to you. I want to say thank you as I stand here, and please accept my respect. To my colleague, the politicians, and the many governors, well, the president, as I thank you and welcome you through Yemi Osinbajo as a deputy, and he has read out so many names. It will be boring, and I will fail the essay of today if I start reading out your names. So, and I've never taken failure for on my birthdays. So please let me just skip the listing of the names. I want to say thank you to all the governors. I've seen all of you, members of the House of Assembly National Assembly elect. I've seen the leaders of the Senate, 8th Senate, Senator Lawan, and many more of our great leaders. And I want to say thank you to Adam Oshiomhole. The storming petrel of our party, the national chairman. I won't talk about my regular joke about him today, but must thank him with the National Working Committee leadership of our party for achieving a victory for our party. We still have the president for a second term. We won the National Assembly with a resounding majority. Kudos to APC. It cannot have been better for my birthday if we feel like the other party. But I'm excited because we wallop them. And as the co-chairman of the national campaign and the party strategies, I commend myself too. Thank you very much, Bola Tinubu. Bisi Akande, Baba Omo Kekeke, and the founding pioneer chairman of the APC. I know we take you through several turbulent moments, but I'm sure you are very proud and happy of what we are pushing today and what you have seen today and how we are creating the steps for the next level. May God continue to spare your life to the greatness. I want to thank my darling wife, Chief Mrs. Oluremi Tinubu. Well, we are co-politicians now, so I work for you, you work for me. It's a 50-50. Many of you who left your personal businesses, and my governor, Akinwumi Ambode, and the wife, Bimbola Ambode. Bola, thank you very much for being here. I could see all the commitment, and we'll be with you to take a bite later on this afternoon. The incoming governor and his deputy, Jide Sanwo-Olu, and Obafemi Hamzat. But let me grant me the indulgence of thanking the member of Government and Governor Advisory Council of Lagos State. They are the leaders that I depend on. They are all here. Prince Oluyole Olusi led the delegation. Thank you. But I don't want to waste your time any longer on this protocol, and thank you. We are talking about next level today. You see, the next level is not just a trendy campaign phrase to be quickly discarded once victory has been achieved. It has a much deeper meaning, a more profound meaning, perhaps even more than its authors contemplated. This is because we are a nation still in the process of defining itself politically and economically. In this process, it is tempting and easy to borrow indiscriminately from the nations that seem to have mastered the art of democratic governance and to have achieved economic prosperity. However, to achieve durable progress, we cannot afford to lay back. We must work hard, not in mindless devotion to the ways of the other nations, but our well-tailored economy for our own people. The truth is particularly acute when these very nations, they now face fundamental political and economic questions that cast doubt on the social utility and viability of economic model under which they have traveled for the past 50 years. The global economy faces a stiff headwind. Factors not our making. It casts doubt now, and its projection is low growth. It's slipping. And this is where I will stop and appeal to Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the Vice President, and his team. Put a huge question mark on any increase on VAT, please. If we reduce the purchasing power of the people, we can further slow down the economy. Let's widen the tax net. Those who are not paying now, if it is inclusive of Bola Tinubu, let the nets get bigger and we take in more taxes, and that is what we must do in the country, instead of additional layer of taxes. For now, I stop there. Consumer spending is slipping, that's true. America and China are in trade of war, tug of war. Brexit looms imminent. Whatever form Brexit takes, economic dislocation will emerge from the political confusion now underway. Even without Brexit, the EU itself is going through a rough patch. Eurozone may already be in recession. Stock market experiences wide swings that speak to an underlying weakness and pessimism about the immediate future. Forecasters are predicting global recession within the next 12 to 18 months. I render these observations not to frighten us, but because they ring true. Wisdom requires that we accept reality instead of obscuring it. Under the cloak of wishful thinking, we cannot just obstruct it. We must build policies that interact with the world as it is and not with the world as it should be. We must recognize that these harsh economic tidings as advance warnings to the wise. Hence, we must think deeper, work harder for our people in Nigeria. And I believe you, the Vice President and President Buhari, having laid a solid foundation for our economic recovery. You are at it, hardworking, and we will be with you all the way through it. We will support you. And you and Mr. President, you've warned several times that the storm that approaches is inevitable. It's not inevitable. It is born of a human folly and reckless greed. The greed manage our appetite now. That means it can be rectified by human wisdom and prudential action. At this point, we must recognize a fundamental truth of our time. The economic model upon which the world is built is unraveling. The coming downturn is just a symptom of the great upheaval. The global economy faces the storm and needs a better and constructive reform. Wages stagnate while prices are on ceaseless march upward. In America, progressive championed a Green New Deal, a massive government program to modernize the nation's aging energy infrastructure and to create job programs to keep the middle class from becoming an endangered economic species. In France, the Yellow Vest protests austerity policies of the Macron government. Their protest is popular. Brexit, no matter how misguided, was in large part a premier scream by people who fear the EU, responsible for their diminished economic conditions. The frustrated British would have been more accurate had they pointed a finger to the corporate closer home. The austerity measure and policies of the Conservative Party, Tory Party in the last 2 years. We must question the central right. But in our case, the next level must be seen as a part of a global and historic dynamic. Our pursuit of next level cannot be achieved by blindly following the economic path of other nations. I have seen a generic and homegrown innovation and creativity from various ideas that I've listened to here. I must congratulate this government. I've written my speech before I saw those animations, and I love what I've seen, and I believe in them that if we pursue it aggressively, we must construct our next level on a progressive ideology and vision that will take our people out of penury, diversify our economy, and more aggressively empower our youths and retrain our women and youths put together. To become the great nation that we want to be, we must reform and retool the economy according to our definition. what is best for our own people, we cannot assign that duty to anyone else. Here I must ask for a little liberty to amend the fine title of this colloquium. The title is Work for the People. I say we must simply work, we must simply do more than that. We must simply work for the people in a way that enables them to better work for themselves. We must amend our basic ideas about the economy. We must divorce ourselves from our fixation with the GDP, all those rates and similar statistics. These things were initially intended to be indicators, suggestive measurements. However, we have misinterpreted these items to be roadmaps. These roadmaps, by treating them as if they were the destination in itself. No. Let's create our value here. The dominant train of thought has made the people servant to the dictates of abstract economic theories. In a more effective system, the economy will be fashioned to serve the concrete needs and legitimate aspiration of the people. Our economy must be redefined to be an efficient yet moral social construct with the primary goal of optimizing long-term welfare of our people through sustained, productive, and full employment of labor, land, capital, and natural resources. In the current global context, the best translation of laissez-faire economics is, let's say, poor economics. We defeated that ideology last election, what I call container economics. To believe that we're out at our best, everyone must focus on what we could do here at home. How can we transform our God-given resources to raw materials to produce things for ourselves? But that brings us to the topic of discourse. The most single important government is infrastructure. And I'm glad you made that your priority, our priority. But the most single important item of them all is power. Power has been the greatest discovery of humanity in the last 1,000 years. There's no success you can achieve without power. You can't industrialize this country. Look around and see the density of vehicles around you. How many of these are we producing here? Even the paint on them, the brake pads, the wheels, the exhaust pipes are not made in Nigeria. Whereas we can do it. We rededicate ourselves to reforming the electricity of this country. I believe the second Buhari administration will work to increase electricity generation. I've heard that. Transmission and distribution by more than 50% within the next 4 years. It's a challenge that we must go through, and we all must be held responsible for this. We require serious and bold reform. Whatever is happening to our gas, we have abundance of it. If it is tax reform or tax exemptions or tax incentives, let's find a way to use that gas and not flare them, to industrialize our country. Continue flaring of those gases, they push into our family members across this country. I know we can do the pipelines. The network of pipelines that we inherited are still functional. And we are no longer a military regime when they promised that our prosperity was in the pipeline, and those Niger Delta boys started breaking them up, looking for the prosperity. They now know that it's empty and dangerous. They don't do it again. For the electricity, the PDP administration shared out generation and distribution, leaving transmission in carcass without deeply thinking and evaluating the impacts and consequences of the privatization. Please, let's revisit that privatization. Put experts together. It's not a pork chop. It's not a birthday cake like the one you put here to celebrate my day, that we will share, eat, and go. That's what they thought they were. Trying to create another subsidy before they go, to continue to fleece Nigerians. We must put an end to the practice of billing people for electricity they never received. We must show them that that practice is the vestige of the past. A person should be charged accurately and only for the power that they use. Sir, you are doing well in agriculture, but we can do more. You did inspire us on this stage and in this hall about commodity. We like the anchor borrowers. Expand it. It's creating jobs, yes. We must criticize ourselves. We need more of it. Transformation that will create raw materials for our pharmaceutical industries. If we think the West, and I like the program of our partnership with Brazil, I commend your efforts on that. But you must bring forward the assembly plan to put mechanized farming tools in the front burner. We must equally invest more in the grain silos and food preservation in this country. What exactly? So many of us had looked upon as disaster and adversity. I said no. The herdsman, the animal husbandry, is not an enemy to the farmers. If we think deep, we can convert that adversity to prosperity and economic opportunity for our people. Put the animals, grow the corns for them. And we create an abattoir, skin, and use the hide and skin processing to create beautiful bags being carried by our wives and our daughters. It's an economic opportunity, not a misfortune. Let's think and find a way to convert that opportunity to job creation, economic prosperity for our country. In working to transform the face of our economy, we must enact policies that encourage industrialization and modernization, as you've stated here. Go ahead. We will support and continue to support this government. We understand that you face a very stiff headwind, but somewhere in the height of a raging storm is a quiet and peaceful spot where we can think for this country to grow our economy. Our goal is nothing less than enabling people to enjoy lives free of penury and lack. We seek to constitute a nation where all the basic sustenance and sufficient food on their tables, a sturdy and sheltering roof over their heads, and a fair chance and means to sustain and further enrich their lives as they see fit. Let it be that all that we may live in social contentment and peaceful with our neighbors as with ourselves. This is what we mean by next level. May God give it to us. Thank you for giving me this birthday wish. God bless you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now, we are going to invite very quickly to give a toast to our celebrant. The chairman of the Governors Forum, His Excellency Abdulaziz Yari. Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by our members, President Professor Emir Osibanjo, our national leader, whom we gathered here today to celebrate. My work is simple: to invite the countries that are present here to toast the 67th years anniversary and 11th colloquium of our leader, Asuwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. May you all toast, and may Almighty Allah grant him many more years in prosperity. We toast. Thank you.
Onílọ́jọ́ ìbí ẹ. Congratulations, Aṣíwájú. Happy birthday to you. Onílọ́jọ́ ìbí ẹ. Congratulations. Happy birthday to you. Onílọ́jọ́ ìbí ẹ. Aṣíwájú. Congratulations. Happy birthday to you.
Okay, we'll be asking the media men of the media to.
Congratulations. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Please, may we ask the men of media to please make way. We're about to start our cake cutting, and we are going into our session, our photo sessions. Please, you're not allowed to come up to the podium. All men of the media.
Lagos Central.
Respectfully invite His Excellency Aṣíwájú Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his lovely wife, distinguished Senator Oluremi Tinubu, to please come up to the stage.
Nítorí Aṣíwájú, aya rere lọ́dẹ̀dẹ̀ ọkọ o. Senator, aya rere lọ́dẹ̀dẹ̀ ọkọ o.
His Excellency Governor Yari, His Excellency Abdulaziz Yari should be here to preside over the cutting of the cake.
Nítorí Chief Remi Tinubu, aya rere lọ́dẹ̀dẹ̀ ọkọ o. Aya rere lọ́dẹ̀dẹ̀ ọkọ o. Nítorí olùrànlọ́wọ́ la jẹ́. Ẹ ṣe ra yín lọ́kàn. Olùrànlọ́wọ́ la jẹ́.
May we invite the Vice President and his wife. Rulers present.
Our Grand Party Chairman, Ọ̀ṣínbàjò. Èmi àjò máa tún fẹsẹ̀ sókè wípé bàbá ṣeun púpọ̀ fún mi ní tèmi.
All the governors present should please make their way up for photographs.
Ọ̀rọ̀ mi ti dayọ̀, ẹni tó gbàgbọ́ arére níbẹ̀, àjọba àdádé ògo. Èmi àjò máa tún fẹsẹ̀.
Your Excellency, the governors here present, please make your way up for your photograph session.
National Chairman.
We would also like to invite our first-class traditional rulers to please make their way up to the podium. Our first class, the Oni of Ife. Well, to all royal fathers present, Your Royal Majesties.
Lagos Central lónìí máa kọrin wípé Èkó akéde ilé ọgbọ́n.
So please, if you've taken, Your Excellencies, the governors, please could you make way for the traditional rulers who are making their way up the stage. Once this session is over, the members of the National Assembly present should just please go to the left and just wait. The members of the National Assembly, please don't come up the podium. Just go to the left. Go to my left-hand side.
Ọ̀jájá àìkọ́ba níbẹ̀rẹ̀ àìkọ́ba nínú ro.
Please, for those who have taken photographs, can you please depart from the podium so that who are meant to take their own session can come up the podium. If you have taken part in the session, please, we'll be asking you to please depart now. All the ministers and members of the federal cabinet. All the ministers and members of the cabinet. Your Excellencies, please, can we all depart from the podium? Please, can we all leave the stage? We have taken our own part in the sessions and we have other dignitaries in queue. Please, can we depart from the podium? Please, everyone, we have members of the cabinet. Yes. Members of the cabinet. Members of the cabinet should please come and take photographs with the central. Members of the Federal Executive Council. Ministers. Please, our royal fathers, please depart from the stage. Our royal fathers, please, can you depart from the stage, please?
Torí aṣíwájú ẹni àpètèpèrò bẹ́ẹ̀ ló ń pẹ́lẹ́ sí.
If you are not a member of the National Assembly, can you please depart from the podium, please? If you are not a member of the National Assembly, please depart from the podium. Please, let's all be orderly and take these photographs as we have ordered them. Please, if you're not a member of the National Assembly, we respectfully ask you to depart from the podium. Please depart from the stage.
Torí Ọ̀ṣínbàjò, appreciation, mo dúpẹ́, onífọ̀ ọ̀rẹ́ bàbá gan pẹ́ mi. Appreciation, mo dúpẹ́, onífọ̀ ọ̀rẹ́ bàbá gan pẹ́ mi. Kó máa ro wẹ́lẹ́ wẹ́lẹ́ wẹ́lẹ́.
Wẹ́lẹ́ wẹ́lẹ́.
Aṣíwájú ò fariwo. Appreciation, mo dúpẹ́, onífọ̀ ọ̀rẹ́ bàbá gan pẹ́
We are done with the members of the National Assembly.
Whether èmi yóò gbé ọ̀gá Olúwa. Ẹ̀dá tó ń ràròjinlẹ̀ ló lè mọ̀ whether èmi yóò gbé ọ̀gá Olúwa.
Next, members of the cabinet, members of the Federal Executive Council. Please, all members of the National Assembly to depart now from the stage as we invite members of the Federal Cabinet. All members of the National Assembly to depart from the stage now as we invite the ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Subsequent speakers, especially the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, accentuated the fact that Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu's brilliance in terms of political disposition and national law is such that objectivity is brought to bear. The Vice President mentioned that when Tinubu was governor of Lagos State, he appointed into his cabinet people who are not Lagosians, which explains why I think Tinubu will say, work for the people, that the people may work for themselves. Gradually drawing close to the end of the colloquium is picture session now, and NTA is still on, working to ensure that every bit of the colloquium reaches you, so keep staying tuned.
All the speakers of today's colloquium should please come and take the final photo session before the national anthem.
Àwa máa di ọba Elédùmarè. Àwa máa di ọba Elédùmarè. Ó dáàbò bò mí táyà tọmọ tẹbí tará. Ó dáàbò bò mí táyà tọmọ tẹbí tará. Ìgbòkègbodò ẹ kò jẹ́ kó já sórí asán. Ìgbòkègbodò ẹ kò jẹ́ kó já sórí asán. Òun yan fàǹdàfàǹdà lójú apẹ̀kun. Bí ọ̀pọ̀lọ́ ṣe ń yan lójú ẹlẹ́gùsí. Ẹlẹ́gùsí ò gbọ́dọ̀ yí látà.
National anthem.
The program has been the 11th colloquium in honor of Ahmed Bola Tinubu, former governor of Lagos State, currently national leader of the All Progressives Congress. This is the 11th colloquium in his honor, and this is to mark his 67th birthday. On behalf of everyone who has done something to have brought this program live to you from the International Conference Center here in Abuja, Nigeria, thanking you for your time and attention. NTA's regularly scheduled programs for this day, Thursday, 28 March 2019, will come up right after now. Please stay tuned to NTA. Thank you and God bless.